Welcome to this edition of Draft Utopia. Chris Ransom, William Yanish, Joseph Potter should be here with us shortly. Today, we're going to do the following. I'm going to go through the American League teams for American League preview. We will go through NFL free agency. We will go through the first two rounds of the group mock after that. And I don't know, maybe we'll go through some bracketology if we have time for March Madness, but the brackets are coming out tomorrow. Emmanuel Watts and I will have a show strictly focusing on the tournament matchups tomorrow at 6. But I'm going to get into the MLB, and I'm going to start with the Athletics because they refused to have a city name for their team. They moved to Sacramento until the new stadium in Las Vegas opens, but because they refused to have a team name for a city, we open up with them, and we'll open up with the AL West. I think I'm going to save the AL Central for last because Joey's a Guardians fan. You're a White Sox fan. It gives Joey more time to get here to talk about the Guardians. So I'm going to open up with the Athletics, and then we'll go to the AL East after we're done with the AL West. But yeah, this batting lineup is absolutely stacked. Nick Kurtz was my favorite player in the 2024 MLB draft coming out of Wake Forest. You got Shea Langeliers, former Baylor catcher that the Braves drafted that you got in the trade when you sent your starting catcher to the Braves. Tyler Soderstrom, 2020 first-round pick. You've got Brent Rooker, former Royal, off waivers. Jeff McNeil's filling in for Zach Geloff. Zach Geloff, the Athletics second baseman, had season-ending surgery back in September, so McNeil is just a stopgap until he recovers, but he had 12 home runs with the Mets last year in limited action. Jacob Wilson, former son of Pirates shortstop Jack Wilson, already extended to a long-term contract with the Athletics. So this 1 through 6 lineup, and Lawrence Butler, right fielder, batting 7th. Everyone in the 1 through 7 part of the lineup hit 10 or more home runs last year, even with the absence of second baseman Zach Geloff. You've got Max Muncy, a 2021 first-round pick. Oh, he's underachieved, but they have Tommy White, LSU outfielder that Joey and I have talked about in the minors in AA. So if Muncy cannot improve on his 9 home runs, Tommy White probably will replace him down the road. And then the only weak spot in this lineup is at center fielder with 4th-round pick Denzel Clark from 2021. But overall, the batting lineup looks pretty strong. I mean, there are some positives here. You'd like to see a few improvements in utility players. Starting rotation is definitely not good, but they did draft Jamie Arnold, the Florida State pitcher I liked in the first round of last year's draft. Once Jamie Arnold reaches the majors, he should be the Athletics' ace and number 1 starter. And the rotation sucks, and the bullpen sucks outside of Mark Leiter Jr. Mark Leiter Jr., a 3.99 ERA last year with the Yankees, and the Athletics will get him. It said he could be anything from a mid reliever, setup pitcher to a closer, but everyone else in this bullpen is an ERA above 4. The batters for the Athletics are going to keep them in games, but the pitching is absolute dog crap. That's why the Athletics will not make the playoffs, William. But the batters will make things exciting for fans of the Athletics. All right, who's next? Who's next in this division? Oh, crap, I skipped the Astros. I clicked on the Angels for a second. I skipped the Houston Astros. I'm so sorry, Brad Noble. Please forgive me. Brad Noble in our group mock picking for the Texans. He is an Astros fan, so we're going to get to his team now. And, yeah, I don't know why this is taking so long. And really, the only 2 teams in this division that are, well, maybe 3. I mean, the Angels and the Athletics are the 2 worst teams in this division. Altuve's still with the Astros. He is a beast. I'm going to look at some stuff here because Nick, the batting with the Athletics, I mean, just looking at the batting with them last year, Nick Kurtz, 36 home runs in his rookie year. Shea Langeliers, 31 home runs. That's your 1 and 2 batters. You got Soderstrom, 25 home runs. He bats 3rd. Rooker bats 4th. The guy you got from the Mets replacing Geloff, 12 home runs, bats 5th. Jacob Wilson, 311 batting average, bats 6th. Lawrence Butler, 21 home runs, bats 7th. That's a very good 1 through 7 that the Athletics have in their batting lineup. And Max Muncy can step up. You'll have that 8th batter. But the Athletics, they're going to have to win their games with their bats. because the pitching's not going to be great. And that's, I mean, at least you have an identity, which is good, William, but it's like you don't want to be in that position where you're dependent on your offense to win games, whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey, and you got a great offense, but your defense goaltending sucks, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, whatever sport, you're dependent on your offense. Because a lot of teams that win championships have. So, but yeah.
For sure.
Altuve, 10 home runs last year. He missed most of the season with an injury. He's usually better than that. Yordan Alvarez had 6 home runs in 114 games. So Alvarez was kind of a liability last year. Usually he's an asset. Padres had 20 home runs as the third batter in the lineup. Actually, Carlos Correa, former Twin, is back with the Astros. That was their trade deadline move. They got Christian Walker in free agency last year. Walker batting 5th. Walker had 27 home runs. And Correa only had 6 home run injuries. Joey Loperfido, I do not know who that is. He's from Toronto. Toronto was in last year's World Series. I'm looking up right now. 248 batting average, 14 RBIs, 27 strikeouts, 333 batting average, but he only played 41 games. So there's a very limited sample size on him, but he could be a potential breakout hitter. I don't see him as a home run threat, but he could be a breakout hitter. Yainer Diaz at catcher, Cam Smith at right field, and Jake Myers. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with this lineup. Diaz actually had a good year, but Cam Smith at catcher, liability. And then you have Jake Myers, your 13th round pick from 2017. Jake Myers had – so, yeah. Astros have a really good 1 through 7, but it's the Astros have a good 1 through 7. But, 8 through 9 spots need to be up. Catcher and center fielder. I do. They got a catcher in their prospect pool in the minor leagues. Finally, the page loaded. Good. Now we can get to the damn pitching. Let's see here. Hunter Brown's the only good pitcher the Astros had last year. Lance McCullers Jr. really fell off a cliff after he came back. But these are projected ERAs. These are not the exact – those are the projected ERAs. That's why I have 2 tabs open. I have a tab open with the actual stats, and I have a tab open with the projected ERAs. Hunter ERA last year, they're projecting that to go up to a 3.34. So, yeah, Hunter Brown is your ace. Emal, that's an addition to replace Framber Valdez. Mike Burrows from the Pittsburgh Pirates Astros. 4.11 ERA, that's your number 3 guy. Javier and McCullers Jr. So, yeah, this isn't a Astros starting rotation. This is actually one of their worst rotations. Bullpen's actually their strong point. They've got a set pitcher in Brian King. They've got Brian Abreu as the closer. And they've got a couple of good middle relievers in Kurt and Bennett Sousa, just based on what they've added. They've traded relievers. They got a long reliever in the Rule 5 draft. They traded for Kai Wei Tang. And Jeremy Pena, their former 2023 World Series MVP, he had a fractured finger. So he had surgery in 2026. So Jeremy Pena is going to miss some time. Former MVP of the ALCS and World Series in 2022 when the Astros beat the Phillies. So he's going to miss some time. But yeah, the Astros, I'm surprised, William. The Astros look much worse than usual. And I get it. They had a lot of turnover. When they lost Kyle Tucker to the Cubs last year, they had a lot of turnover. So I get why they're significantly worse, but I'm surprised at how worse they've gotten. This is like
selling the ranch to take a break for a couple of years.
Yeah, maybe. I'm trying to think of an appropriate franchise to compare this to in the NFL. This is like, I don't know. This would be like the Steelers going from Aaron Rodgers, I guess. I don't know. I can't think of an appropriate franchise to compare the Astros to in the NFL because I don't see a franchise that's gone from being a former Super Bowl winner to just being in a total rebuild within the span of 2 years. I cannot pinpoint that team because a lot of the teams that have won Super Bowls in recent years in the NFL, William, haven't entered a complete rebuild yet where they're just blowing everything up. I'd say the closest probably is the Buccaneers, but they went 8-9. They still had a respectable record. Their quarterback, so the Angels, Zach Neto, Mike Trout, Nolan Schnottel, all first-round picks from 22-23. Yon Moncada, third base. Jorge Soler, DH. Joe Adell, first-round pick 2017. Josh Lowe, Logan O'Hoppe at catcher, and Christian Moore, their 2024 first-round pick. I would say their lineup is their lineup's actually pretty good. So their batting lineup, like the Athletics, they've got a very good 1 through 9. It's just, can Jose Soriano and Grayson Rodriguez, can any of these guys, can Yusei Kikuchi, can any of these guys take that leap for the Angels in the pitching? If they can, they could be the team that maybe finishes second because they've had the batters to win this division for a few years now. But, you know, they can't get anything from their pitching. And the rest of the team. Okay, so Jose 3.99 ERA last year. With Reed Detmers had a 3.96. So, you know, the Angels might be the team here to look at. I'm real because if Kikuchi and Soriano both have ERAs of under 4, and Grayson Rodriguez, and Manoah was great with Toronto. Alek Manoah was drafted by Toronto. He was an all-star when he first entered the league, but he's fallen off a cliff the last 2 years. If this starting rotation steps up, which is a big if, William, this is probably the de facto challenger to the Mariners, I guess. And I'm not going to lie. There is a temptation to pick this team together. I'm not going to go that far out, but like, I'm having trouble deciding who that 6th team in the American League is going to be. The Angels, I think, are in consideration for that now. I didn't think I'd say that about them initially. Kirby Yates, Drew Pomeranz at closer and setup. The rest of the bullpen is not good. But the starting rotation, if the starting rotation surprises us, this is a team. And Jordan Romano, middle reliever, he's be a middle reliever on the Angels. If he does well, this is a team that could very easily surprise us. Brent Sutter, another middle reliever that could. If those two guys at middle relief, I definitely think the Angels have the batters to get to the playoffs, and the starting pitching's better than I thought it would be. It's actually better than the Astros, which is not something I anticipated when pulling up the graphs this morning and depth charts. That's not something either one of us anticipated because the Angels and the Athletics have been the butt of jokes in this division for years now. So the Angels actually do have better projected starting pitching than the Astros, but their bullpen outside their closer and setup pitcher is awful. So that's the thing we got for them. And they also got Pomeranz from the Cubs. So those are both big moves that could bolster things for the Angels. So Angels are in consideration for my number 6 spot. I'm not going to hand it to them because I still got to preview a few more teams. The Mariners, this team is probably my pick to win the AL West. I mean, this team had hardly any turnover from last year. I mean, they've got all their starting pitchers back. They've got their bullpen back. Cal Raleigh led the MLB in home runs last year. They got Brendan Donovan at third base to replace Eugenio Suarez. And they got Josh Naylor back after trading for him. They've got Cole Young at second base. Cole Young went to my old high school at A. North Allegheny. So their 1 through 9 lineup is spectacular. They've got really good starting pitching outside of Emerson Hancock, who was bad in the minors, but Hancock getting promoted to the number 5 spot. He was a 2020 first round pick. If Hancock can turn the corner, this Mariners team will have no weaknesses. And the bullpen outside of long reliever and the 2 bottom, 2 middle relievers, the bullpen act looks really good for the Mariners. So I think the Mariners could be a contender once again to maybe they came 1 game away from winning the AL pennant last year. So, I mean, the Mariners would be my pick to win the AL West again. But the only other team in this division so far that I think could warrant wild card consideration is the Angels. But we'll look at the Texas Rangers now, and then we'll get to the AL. We'll get to the AL. We'll get to the AL East. So Brandon Nimmo, he is a addition from the New York Mets. He comes to the Texas Rangers. Wyatt Langford, Corey Seager, Jake Berger, Evan Carter, Josh Jung, Danny Jansen from the Brewers. I love this 1 through 9 batting lineup for the Texas Rangers, and that's how the Texas Rangers won the World Series, with their bats. DeGrom, Eovaldi, and Mackenzie Gore. That's a very good 1 through 3 starting rotation. If Jack Leader, their second overall pick in 2021, can take the leap, is a 4th good starter, and Jacob Latz, probably the weakness of the starting rotation. But I want to see what the bullpen looks like. The bullpen, Robert Garcia and Chris Martin, very good closer and setup pitcher. They've got a good long reliever in Jalen Beeks and Jakob Yunis. Though the 2 long relievers they have, and their closer and setup are good, but the middle relievers of this team is the weakness. So you can make a case for the Angels. You can make a case for the Rangers as that number 2 team. I think the Astros, bold prediction here, I think the Houston Astros finish 4th in the division, ahead of the Athletics, but behind the Angels and Rangers. And most people are picking the Astros to finish 1st or 2nd in the AL West. I think the Astros finish 4th, and I think we're looking at either the Rangers or the Angels in 2nd. Common sense says I should probably pick the Rangers to finish 2nd and the Angels 3rd. But I think the Angels have the better rotation. I think the Rangers have a better bullpen. But it's going to come down to what team develops their guys. And I would argue that, both the Angels and Rangers have very good 1 through 9s in their batting lineup. So, but I give the Rangers a slight edge in batting. So I'll probably go Angels 3, Rangers 2. And yeah, so that's the AL West. I still have not decided on the final wild card yet. Next division's the AL East. Is Joey? I'm texting Joey to see if he's here. I don't think he's here yet, William, but I'll text him on Facebook.
Yeah, that's not.
I know
fair,
Joey
man.
really wants
Still
to talk.
napping.
He was active 2 hours ago. I'm guessing he's on his run. He'll join us whenever he's ready. Because he was on Facebook 2 hours ago, but I don't think text, but yeah. I didn't send a link to the show until 9. That's the problem. He was online 2 hours ago. I could call him when we get to the AL Central. I'll call him when we get to the AL Central, but yeah. Okay, never mind. We're going to have to put the Red Sox on hold. We are going to start with the AL East, but we're going to start with the Orioles. We're going to start with the Orioles here. Which one of us is going to break the news? We'll get to the Red Sox when we get to the Red Sox, but one of us is going to have to break the news to my mom that they're probably not going to get back to the playoffs this year. I don't want to be the one that has to break the news to my mom that the Red Sox are not going to get back to the playoffs this year. So...
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy either, man. I'll get Joey to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why we need Joey. He has no problem breaking the news to my mom that the Red Sox will not get back to the playoffs. But yes, the Orioles, they've got Gunnar Henderson. They traded for Taylor Ward from the Angels. They've got Pete Alonso from the Mets at first base. Adley Rutschman still their starting catcher. Tyler O'Neill at right fielder. Samuel Basello, Kobe Mayo, Colton Cowser at center fielder, Blaze Alexander. Oh, is that Joey? Is he here? Is that Joey? I heard a boop boop. Or is that William? That is Joey. Okay,
here.
perfect timing. All right, perfect. That's Joey. All right, perfect. We're on the so Joey can break so we've previewed the AL West already, Joey, and we're gonna start the AL East, but my AL West prediction, the bold prediction I made, is the Astros will finish 4th. I've got the Angels in 3rd, and I've got the Texas Rangers in 2nd. The Mariners winning the division again. Still undecided on wild cards. I have decided 5 of my 6 playoff teams. The Mariners are my pick to win the West again, but yeah. Then we're going to save the Sox and Guardians for last. But the Orioles, they made some moves. Pete Alonso's a good addition as a cleanup batter. I like what they've done. I got to see some improvements in the rotation. Okay, so Taylor Ward had 36 home runs with the Angels last year, and he's on the Orioles now. So that's a really good 1 through 4. Henderson, Ward, Alonso, Rushman. I'm kind of curious to see what happens here with this with the Orioles here. I'm a little bit the Orioles because they've got a lot of good batters. The pitching was a massive problem last year. Jackson Henderson, Colton Cowser had 16 home runs. Or no, I'm looking. Tyler O'Neill says So Tyler O'Neill, I'm trying to find Tyler O'Neill's what he is. Okay, Tyler O'Neill was a liability with the Orioles last year at right fielder, but Basillo from the Dominican Republic, the DH, I would imagine his numbers are respectable. Damn, I don't have anything on Basillo either, so maybe he was a liability too. So the Orioles were last year. Basillo had 4 home runs. Not great production. Baseman, you have Colton Cowser, and then you got Blaze Alexander. I do think the Blaze Alexander addition could be a good one. But the Orioles are interesting. No, Blaze Alexander only had a meager 7 home runs. So outside of the top 4, this is kind of a very bland rotation by the Orioles. I mean, very bland batting lineup, not rotation. But yeah, you've got Rushman. The top 4 of this lineup is really good. Cowser has his moments, but he's also very inconsistent, and that's what worries me. And then the rest of this 5 through 9 lineup's very putrid. But yes, the Orioles, their rotation looks a lot better. They've got 4 starters with projected ERAs of under 4. Ryan bullpen, never mind. I don't want the scores fan graphs. I'd like to look at the starting rotation, please. Okay. Trevor Rogers, you have one. Trevor Rogers had an ERA of under 4 last year. They're saying it will go up to 4.08. I do like Bradish and Rogers. I do think those two are good. You traded for Chris Bassett from Toronto. No, you got Chris Bassett from Tennessee. While his ERA sucked in the regular season, he was big for Toronto in the playoffs last year. And Shane Baz from the Tampa Bay Rays. And then Zach Eflin, who you got at last year's trade deadline with the Padres, regressed big time, but he was very good with the Orioles in 2024, but he regressed heavily in 2025. So if the Orioles starting rotation steps up, they could be a candidate to potentially get that last wild card. But there's a lot of things that have to go right with this Orioles team. I'm not very confident they'll pull it off, but we'll see. And then the bullpen for the Orioles has some very promising pieces. Closer, closer, the setup pitcher, the middle relievers. The long relievers are really the only weakness in the Orioles bullpen. So if the starting pitchers for this Orioles team step up, this team could make some noise. But if they get in the playoffs, they'll be a 6 seed at best because, again, the 5 through 9 lineup in their batting order outside of Colton Cowser is not very good. So that's what's holding them back, in my opinion. You got any thoughts on the AL West or the Orioles? I'm guessing, Joey, you're saving most of your thoughts for the Guardians when we get to them.
I wasn't impressed with what the Orioles did.
Yeah.
I thought that their inability to add in the offseason was impressively worse than some teams. And I think they've never had an overly impressive farm system, but they're decent. So I think their success this year is going to depend on that farm system.
Yeah, because Pete Alonso is the only splash they made. And even though I like the fact their pitching, their bullpen's gotten better, they're dependent on they're dependent on the top 4 to get them on base. And the 5 through 9 is just very inconsistent. You can't really say that about a lot of MLB teams right now. So I think that's what hurts them more than anything else. The Red Sox, William and I joked, who wants to break the news to my mom that the Red Sox probably aren't going to make it back to the playoffs? I do like their batting lineup, okay? Roman Anthony, Trevor Story, Jarren Duran, Wilson Contreras, Wilyer Abreu, Caleb Duran from the Brewers, Cedine Raffia, Marcelo Mayer, Carlos Navarez. Navarez is really the only liability in the batting lineup, and they do have a catcher in their prospect pool. They have Connor Wong as the backup catcher, so I guess they're all right there. But, I mean, you look at the Red Sox rotation, they've got 3 quality starters, Garrett Crochet, Ranger Suarez, and Sonny Gray. And they did re-sign Aroldis Chapman. You've got Whitlock as your setup pitcher. You've got Justin Slayton at middle reliever. You've got Danny Colome at middle reliever. And you've got 2 good middle relievers. And you've got Ryan Watson from the Athletics and Moran as your 2 long relievers. So you got 2 good long relievers, a good setup, 2 good middle relievers. I do think the Red Sox bullpen is decent. It's better than it was last year. It's decent. It's not great, but it's decent to where, and you added Colombe from Texas, who had a 3.76, who's projected of a 3.76 ERA. Tristan Casas is on IL list for Red Sox. Once he comes back, he will be in the lineup at first base. And there's talks the Red Sox might move him to catcher. Oh, and Tanner Houck. Once Tanner Houck comes back, the Red Sox will have a 4th quality starter in that lineup. So right now, looking at these wild card teams, I'm looking at the Angels, I'm looking at the Texas Rangers, and I'm looking at the Red Sox as candidates for that final wild card spot. I have not crowned a final wild card yet, though. So next up is the Yankees. Red Sox are in the running. I'm not so quick to dismiss them, but I'm looking for that complete team that has the batting lineup, the good pitching, and the bullpen. And
the only problem the Red Sox had this year is that they followed the same template they follow every year. And it has fallen just short for years now. So they're going to get incremental improvement. They're going to fall back in some areas, and they're going to be in the exact same place they were last year, in the year before, because they keep following the same template. And it's a template that's good, but just doesn't measure up.
Yeah, even if the Red Sox get back to the playoffs, they just don't measure up compared to the other 5 teams that there were 4 teams that we said could win the AL pennant last year when we did our AL season preview. The Yankees, the Mariners, the Guardians, the Tigers. Those were the 4 we mentioned, and then Toronto ended up surprising us because it's funny because I picked Toronto to go to the 2024 World Series, but they finished last. I actually picked Toronto to beat the Braves in the 2024 World Series. Toronto decides to finish last that year. And then this past season, Miss Toronto, they decide to make me look like idiots and win the AL pennant. So, yeah, there's 5 good teams in the American League. And then deciding who that last wild card is going to be tough, but I think there's a big drop off between number 6 and the top 5 teams on this group. The Yankees, Aaron Judge, Bellinger, Ben Rice, Stanton, Chisholm, Austin Wells, Caballero, McMahon. Very good 1 through 9 batting lineup. Goldschmidt was the first baseman last year, but he's going to be a utility player this year. And then you have Max Fried, Cam Schlitter, Will Warren. So I guess Cole Young I'm guessing Garrett Cole is still on the injured list because he is not listed in the Yankees rotation on Fangraphs. And if he's not listed in that rotation, then the Yankees are going to have problems. I mean, they did get David Bednar at the trade deadline last year. I like that move. Their bullpen does look relatively strong. I guess. And they got Cade Winquist at long reliever in the Rule 5 draft. So if Winquist can step up, this team can do something. But right now, Cole and Carlos Rodon and Clark Schmidt are on the injured list. So that does cripple the Yankees in the early portion of the season because they really need those 3 guys and Fried to have a good rotation. Like, in order to have a complete rotation that can challenge for a World Series, Joey, they need Max Fried, they need Garrett Cole, they need Carlos Rodon, and they need Clark Schmidt. They need all of those guys at full health to challenge for the pennant. And right now, they only have one of those guys healthy. So that, for me, kind of weeds out the Yankees at the moment. The Yankees may end up getting in, but if they get in, I think they'll get in as like either a 3 seed or a 4 seed. 3 seed if they win the division from Toronto, a 4 seed if they're a wild card. Because right now, maybe a 5 seed. Because right now, Cleveland or Detroit both look better than the Yankees with these injuries. So it's possible that they end up as a 5 seed and having to play Cleveland or Detroit on the road in a 3-game series right now. That's possible. So I'd say the 4 for the Yankees.
In
5,
spring training,
3.
in spring training and through the World Baseball Classic, which I've been following, Yankees players look good. Now, they've been unusually silent this offseason. So they haven't spent as much. So I'm wondering what happens with that. But just as far as play on the field, I haven't seen much from their pitching, but their batters look to be crisp and ready for the season.
Yeah, their batters look amazing. I think their batters are going to win them a lot of games this year. But the pitching is the pitching's going to be the key because right now your bullpen's decent, but 3 of your starting pitchers are injured, and unless they come back, I don't know if they're in that same tier of teams as the Mariners, the Blue Jays, the Tigers, the Guardians. Unless Cole, Rodon, and Schmidt are back for that playoff run, I can't say they're in that same tier of teams yet. But I do love their batting as well, Joey. I'm with you there 100%. I would not be shocked if they won the World Series, but if they don't win it this year, their window's gonna pass them, I think, because Garrett Cole's 35, Carlos Rodon's 32, and Clark Schmidt's 30. At some point, that pitching's going to decline with all those guys in their 30s. At some point, the pitching for all 3 of those guys is going to decline significantly, and you're going to have to get younger in the rotation. And the Yankees do have the payroll to do that. But what's surprising is Zach Gallen, the Arizona Diamondbacks' #1 starter, is 27 years old. He has not been picked up by a team yet, Joey, which is kind of surprising. Nobody's picked him up yet. I mean, Gallen's a good player. That's kind of surprising that nobody's picked him up yet. I think it's because Scott Boras is his agent and he's demanding just an exorbitant amount of money to the point where none of the teams just want to play hardball with Boras. That's probably why he hasn't been picked up. But yes, the Tampa Bay Rays, they got Gavin Lux from the Reds, Yandy Diaz, Orandia. Their batting lineup, Cedric Mullins, Jake Fraley, I do like some of the moves they made, but their batting lineup is unspectacular. Rasmussen, McClanahan, and Steven Matz are the 3 starters I like in this rotation. You've got Griffin Jacks. You've got Clevinger, Baker, Englert. One of the better middle reliever tandems in the league. They have a lot. They are not a good team at long reliever, but Yandres Gomez, they traded for him from the White Sox. If his ERA improves, this bullpen could be sneaky good. Do I think the Rays can win 80 games? Yes. Do I think they would get in as a wild card? Probably not. I think that's the nicest and most accurate way to summarize the Rays season, Joey. And they fired their manager, Kevin Cash, last offseason, too. So there's going to be that transition period as well.
Yeah, there's always a transition when you fire your manager. So, I mean, that's nothing new.
Yeah. And then the final team, the Blue Jays, last year's AL champions. It's still loading because I see the Rays lineup. I don't see the Blue Jays lineup.
I heard that the Blue Jays were doing quite well. They added a couple nice pieces to their rotation. Mainly the relievers. And, so they really haven't made any major splashes. Of course, with the success last year, they really didn't have to.
Yeah, I mean...
But at the same time, they did improve their team incrementally, which... when you get to the World Series, you don't really want to make a bunch of changes. You just want to, improve incrementally. And Blue Jays did that. So I'm not going to say anything bad about them. They're still going to be one of the teams leading the AL this year. They're going to just come back right where they left off.
Yep.
And it's going to be up to the other teams to chase them.
We put 5 players in the thumbnail. We put Aaron Judge in the thumbnail. We put Aaron Judge in the thumbnail. We put Cal Raleigh in the thumbnail. We put Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the thumbnail. We put Skubal in the thumbnail. And we put Jose Ramirez in the thumbnail. And I think if you had to name the best player on each of those top 5 AL teams, those are probably the best individual players on each of those teams right now. So yes, that's my 5 for the playoffs right now. How I'm going to seed them is going to depend on how he looks. Toronto, Springer, Varger, Kirk, Jesus Sanchez. They got Kazuma Okamoto from the national, I think, Japan. And then they got Andres Jimenez as their shortstop and Ernie Clement. They got him. So their batting lineup's pretty good. They've got Miles Straw off the bench. Can we get bullpen Gossman? They added Dylan Cease from the Cubs, and they added Cody Ponce from the Brewers in free agency. Max Scherzer's their number 4 guy. And then they got him at the trade deadline last year. He's back, and Trey is Savage. So I really do like the 1 through 5 rotation that the Blue Jays have as well. And those are 2 good additions, Ponce and Cease. Joey was talking about the free agency moves they made, and boy, did they make a lot of moves. And basically everyone in the Blue Jays bullpen outside of Eric Lauer at long reliever has a projected ERA of under 4. That's why the Blue Jays are one of the favorites to win the American League once again. And it's a big reason why, because that bullpen, the starting pitching, the batting lineup, they are a lot closer to being a complete team than I realized. And they've got Shane Bieber still recovering from forearm fatigue. Once he comes back, you're going to have another guy that you can either put him in the rotation or you can move him to the bullpen to replace your long reliever that sucks. And maybe this is the time to move Bieber to the bullpen. And if you do that, I would say Toronto right now. I'm looking at Toronto and I'm looking at Seattle. They're the 2 so far. I'm probably going to put the Yankees in the wild card just based on the injuries they have. I would not be so shocked. Would I be shocked if the Yankees won the Rays this year? No. But same token, just right now where we're at heading into the year, I think until the starting pitchers for the Yankees come back, I think it's going to be Toronto's division to lose. Unless the Blue Jays get hampered by injuries. I just think it's going to be their division to lose. William, you still here? Because we're going to get to your White Sox right now.
Yes,
We're
sir.
going to get to your White Sox. Then we'll get to the Guardians, Joey's team and my team. But yeah, we'll get to the White Sox right now. But yeah, I'm thinking the Yankees will be a wild card. They'll probably be my 5 seed. I just think Cleveland and Detroit, with the lack of turnover on both of those rosters, I think those two teams are probably going to be in. One of them is going to be in the top 3, and the other is going to be number 4. So just based on the projections right now, the White Sox currently have George Springer. That is I don't know how George Springer got on the White Sox, for longtime Astro and Blue Jay. I guess Springer's in the White Sox. No, this has to be the Blue Jays lineup. Okay? Because Springer's on the Blue Jays. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is on the Blue Jays. These guys are not on the White Sox. Here we go. Okay. Colson Montgomery. You drafted him at shortstop in the first round of the 2021 draft. He looked good heading into the All-Star game. He projects to bat second. You added Murakami from the National NPB. You added Austin Hayes from last year with the Reds as your right fielder. So I think Montgomery and Hayes are really the players I look at and say, wow, this guy can help me win the game. So you're looking at maybe 2 or 3 players in this entire White Sox lineup, Joey, that can help the win games. This is why I said it a few weeks ago. Jets and the White Sox are currently the 3 worst-run franchises in professional sports right now. I think the White Sox are going to break their drought the quickest of those 3, but those are the 3 worst right now. And I don't think it's close. I don't think it's even close as to, can any of these 3. And they don't even list the projection ERAs for the White Sox. That's how bad. Well, I guess I'll have to pull up and before I trash the White Sox, I don't want to trash Williams' team. So before let's pull up the actual, because if there's no actual projected ERAs for 2026, then we have to rely on the 2025 data before we give Williams White Sox any crap. All right, so yeah, let's see here. Shane Smith had a 4.10 ERA. Sean Burke. Sean Burke had a. Anthony Kay had. They don't even have it K listed, but yeah, the White Sox, they do not look good. They're going to have the number 1 pick in the MLB draft. They did make some moves in the bullpen, though. They got Sir Anthony Dominguez from the Blue Jays. They got Sean Newcomb, a middle reliever from the Athletics. They got Jordan Hicks in the trade with the Red Sox. Jordan Hicks, the former, and then they got Alexander Alberto as their long reliever in the Rule 5 draft from the Tampa Bay Rays. So they did make some moves in the bullpen, which I have to respect. And Kyle Teal, the Red Sox 2024 first-round pick, is projected to make the majors, but he had surgery on a strained hamstring back on March 10th, 2026. Teal's MLB debut has to wait. But he was on pace to majors in spring training this year as a 2024 first-round pick out of Virginia. Kyle Teal was on pace. So if Teal can come up to the White Sox, he'll have that 4th batter you can depend on, William. But yeah, it's not looking great. His team's going to be in a rebuild, but you're going to have the number 1 pick in the draft. And Rock Chalosky out of UCLA is having a very good season so far. So you'll probably get him with that number 1 pick. He's a shortstop on UCLA. You'll probably get him and you'll move Colson Montgomery to third base. That would be my guess, Joey. But again, the White Sox just have a lot of work to do. And they're right up there with the Jets. And I think CF Montreal in the MLS is one of the 3 worst franchises in all the professional sports leagues right now. But I think they're the most likely to turn things around of those three. That should say something too. And then we'll get to the Guardians. You and William have any thoughts on the White Sox before we get to the Guardians?
Nah, like I said, man, I'm glad we got the first pick in the draft, but yeah, this is just something we need to get past. I'll be much happier when
I'm gonna get a glass
I hear that they're winning again.
I'm gonna get a glass of water. Don't worry, guys. I'm gonna get the Cleveland Guardians because I think the
I don't know where
Guardians
Joey went, but
them and the Tigers are top two for this division. But I'm looking at maybe the Royals or Twins can sway me into having one of the last two wild cards. I'm looking at a last wild card because 5 of these spots have already been predetermined. If you saw the thumbnail, Stephen Kwan, Valera, Jose Ramirez, Manzardo, Rhys Hoskins from the Brewers is the number 5 batter in the lineup. I like that addition. Chase DeLauder's the projected center fielder. Gabriel Arias at 7, Bo Naylor at 8, Rocchio at 9. That's a very good 1 through 9. We also have Hedges in our bench. David Fry is a utility. So our bench players and utility players are really good. And then you have Gavin Williams as the projected number 1 starter, Bibby at 2, Sassoni at 3, Logan Allen at 4, and Cantillo at 5. I do love the starting rotation. You've got Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Sean Armstrong, really good closer, setup middle reliever, Sabowski, Festa. Festa is the only weakness at middle reliever. And then the long relievers, Connor Brogdon and Peyton Patel are the 2 long relievers Cleveland brought in. Both have ERAs of above 4, but if Cleveland's pitching coach can turn that around, this bullpen is going to be right up there with Toronto as one of the best in the American League. And you said last year, Joey, that this was the bullpen in the entire American League. So it's like the batting lineup looks great. The starting rotation looks great. I know I want to look at the briefly. I want to look at freaking Progressive ad, or is this what is this? What is this with the guy? Is this Progressive with the guy? But yeah, I can't even look at the 2026 projections for the ERA. Cantillo 3.8, Logan Allen 4.3, Slade Sassoni 4.45, Tanner Bibby 3.9, and Gavin Williams 3.85. I don't know if I agree with those projections, but if Sassoni and Allen are ERAs under control, this is a team that can do a lot of damage, a little bit of damage, a lot of damage, potentially win the entire AL pennant. So we'll see. They're a lot closer than people think. Oh, Bazana, the number 1 pick in the 2024 draft, probably going to get called up to the majors at a certain point as well. So there's a lot to like with the Cleveland Guardians entering this season. William, Joey, you got any thoughts on the Guardians before we get to the Tigers?
I don't know where Joey went, man.
Did he leave?
I don't know.
Let me look. Okay. Toner's
I'll
saying
pay attention to Cleveland baseball again when they start calling themselves the Indians.
I agree. I prefer they call themselves the Indians.
That's garbage.
I do appreciate the insight Joey could provide for us. Did he text me?
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah. All right. We'll go to the Tigers, and then we'll come back to the Guardians when Joey comes back on the call. I think that's the best way to approach this. So we will do that. And then so if Joey comes back, we'll talk about the Guardians. But right now, we'll pivot to the Tigers. Tigers, they've got a very good batting lineup right now. 1 through 9, McGonagall, Torres, Carpenter, Riley Green, Torkelson, Colt Keith, Dylan Dillinger, Zach McKinstry, Parker Meadows. I know I was at the Game 3 wild card where the Jake Rogers off the bench, Javier Baez off the bench, Matt Vierling. Utility, Tigers and Cleveland both have the 2 best utilities. And I said at the time last year that the Tigers brought in Framber Valdez and Justin Verlander to complement their starting pitching. And then you look at Kenley Jensen is the closer for the Tigers now. He had 23 saves last year despite a high ERA. You've got Will Vest as your setup. You've got Kyle Finnegan as your middle reliever. Holton is your middle reliever. Drew Henderson is a middle reliever. Hannafy is a middle reliever. And then Brant Hunter is your long reliever. And then Bo Brisk. If Brisket can lower his ERA, the Tigers would probably be my pick to come out of this thing. But it's very close. I mean, I can't decide between Cleveland and Detroit. That's how close it is. But I also feel like Detroit's due to win the Central at a certain point. I mean, I can't decide, but I really can't. Because I think the Toronto looks great. I think Seattle, I'd probably put the Mariners at 3 right now, and I'm debating between Detroit, Cleveland, and Toronto at 1. And whoever I don't pick to win the AL Central will be 4th. So that's what I'm debating on. I would say right now I'd give a slight edge to the Tigers simply because Bazana's not in the majors yet. And I'm looking at, well, let's see. Let's look at the ERAs for projected ERAs. Right now, the Tigers only have 2 pitchers with projected ERAs of under 4 in Valdez and Skubal. So that tells me I should pick Cleveland to win the division. So, all right, we'll go with Cleveland. But yeah, I'm a big starting pitcher guy. I do think the Tigers have the better bats and bullpen at the moment, though. And we could not score on the Tigers in that playoff loss. So Tigers had batters that could hit it. We could not score on them in that game. And then the Royals. So maybe we will pick. Maybe we will pick the Tigers. I don't know. I'm torn between those teams, but Cleveland's got the better starting pitching. I guess we'll go with them, and we'll go with Toronto at 1. I don't know. Royals, they've got Bobby Witt Jr., Miguel Garcia, Pasquiano, Perez, Caglio, Jonathan India, Carter Jensen. They traded for left field. The Royals have a very good 1 through 9 lineup in the batting lineup. You got Nick Lofton, Michael Massey in your bench, Starling Marte, Lane Thomas from Cleveland. The Royals might have the best utility batters of any team in this division. And then you have Cole Reagans as your number 1 pitcher. 3.4 projected ERA of Michael Wacha as your number 2. If Wacha can get his ERA in check and Bubic has another good year, that's a really good 1 through 3. And then Lugo and Cameron. And then you look at the bullpen. You got a good you got a good setup pitcher, middle reliever, and a good long reliever, but you're dependent on 3 pitchers in the bullpen. And the fact that the Royals only have good starting pitchers is a big reason why I'm leaning towards the Royals not being the final wild card. In the discussion, William, with teams like the Red Sox, the Rangers, the Angels. But I'm leaning against picking them just based on and then the final team in the American League, the Minnesota Twins. So yep. So just looking at, I might go Cleveland 3, Detroit 4, and then the Mariners at 2. I might do that as well. So we'll see. But looking at the Twins, Byron Buxton, they got Josh Bell, former Pirate, National at first base. Luke Keeschel, Matt Wallner, Victor Carr. A lot of guys they drafted: Larned, Royce Lewis, Brooks Lee. I think they've got a decent 1 through 9 lineup. Joe Ryan, 3.79 ERA, but they're dependent on Joe Ryan. Bailey Ober regressed last year. Mick Abel, they got him from the Phillies in a trade. He regressed. You got Taylor Rogers as your new closer, 19 saves. Cody Funder, Buck Burke was the closer last year, now setup pitcher. Cole Sands, good middle reliever. You've gotten 2 middle relievers in trades. This year, you got a long reliever in a trade. and you got Travis Adams, your 6th-round pick from 2021. But Pablo Lopez, Tommy John surgery on February 25th, 2026, and David Festa. So that's really what cripples the Twins right now, William, because Pablo Lopez is considered one of the top 2 pitchers in the Twins. Him having Tommy Johns in February, that is something that definitely cripples their playoff chances because that is one of their 2 best starting pitchers. So, yeah. Okay, so I have the Red Sox, I have the Texas Rangers, and I have the Angels, but I have the Angels finishing 3rd. So my 2 wild card 3 options are the Red Sox and the Texas Rangers. And I'm going to take the Texas Rangers because it's very rare that the same top 6 teams all make the play of seasons. It doesn't happen in baseball. There's always parity. So for parity purposes, I'm going to put the Texas Rangers at 6. That means the Yankees are 5th. No, I'm going to put the Yankees at 6 because of the injuries they have. I'm actually going to put the Rangers at 5. They're going to play the Tigers, and then that's going to leave the Mariners against the. That's going to leave the. No, I'm going to put the Rangers at 6. They're going to play Cleveland. The Yankees are going to play. I'm going to put the Rangers at 6. They're going to play Cleveland. The Yankees are going to play the Tigers in a 5-4 matchup, and the Mariners are going to be 2nd. Blue Jays are going to be 1st. Should I reveal my? Let's make a mental note of. Let's reveal our winners next week. Let's reveal who we have winning each conference next week when we break down the National League. But I'm going to put my AL playoff teams in a Word document so that we have it for next week. Because people are going to want to know if the Dodgers are going to three-peat or not. I think that's the right call, William. We save the MLB playoff predictions for next Saturday after we preview the National League. Leave our audience in suspense. Don't you agree that's the right call rather than reveal things now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like that.
So I'm just going to put so the Rangers will edge out the Red Sox to get that last wild card. And the NL predictions next week, I'm not going to reveal what's going to happen. We'll probably start with the NL East next week, the Atlanta Braves. And if Joey wants to talk about the Guardians when he comes back, but I'm just happy we got through all the baseball content in an hour. I was thinking with all the lineups, with all the research I was going to have to do, it was going to take 2 or 3 hours to get through the baseball content, and then by then you'd be bored. That was not the case, William, and we got through all the baseball content in about an hour, which means the rest of the show we can talk about football, we can talk about free agency, we can talk about the group mock, and we'll also talk about I don't want performance warning. I don't want to share multiple screens. I want to stop sharing the screen, restream. How do I stop sharing? How do I stop? I guess what I'll do is I can X out of Fangraphs. Let's try that. Because the response is to go back to us on camera. I believe that's correct. Yep. That is correct. So I'll adjust the cameras here so you can see both of us. We'll keep his camera off if he wants. But yeah. Okay. Now that the MLB conversations are over for today, we're going to focus on we're going to focus. There's 2 players. I did come up with my list of there are 2 players from the CGS Showcase game that we got to watch that could get drafted. One is David Hoge, a West Georgia edge rusher. The other is The other is Corey Rucker from Arkansas State. I talked to Mike Riddleman, who runs the CGS Showcase. We've had him on the podcast. You, me, and Joey, I think we all interviewed him last year. You may have been sick that day. I don't remember, but Joey and I definitely remember interviewing him. And I texted him this morning because I found a guy in the CGS Showcase that wowed me on tape, an Arkansas State wide receiver, Corey Rucker. So he's a guy to watch. Then David Hoge, another guy Mike Riddleman told me to watch. Those are both guys that could get picked in round 7. They might get picked earlier. We'll see. But yeah, last year there were 2 guys from the CGS Showcase that got drafted in 2025, only 2. So I'm trying to pinpoint who are those 2 this year, and those look like the 2 for this draft. But we could always have Mike Riddleman on Under the Bleachers if we want more clarity on that. So or Draft Utopia. So on that note, let's talk about free agency. A lot of things happened. What else has happened since Saturday? Mini-Me signed with the Vikings and Juggernaut signed with the Falcons. And for anyone who doesn't understand either of those jokes, there's a picture of Kyler Murray as Mini-Me. He's getting lifted in the air by Justin Jefferson. They've made him just as tall as Mini-Me from Austin Powers. And for anyone that doesn't understand the Juggernaut joke, they put this colossal size helmet on Tua Tagovailoa to prevent concussions. And it looks like the same helmet Juggernaut wore in the X-Men. I texted William the other day and I said, look, this is the same helmet Juggernaut from the X-Men wears that Tua's wearing. And then William found an X-Men comic with Juggernaut. And we went from there. So
totally made a meme out of it. Yep. It happened.
It happened. So we're not apologizing.
Other than that, let's see.
That meme needs to apologize. We're not going to apologize to Matt Ryan and the Falcons organization, but the person who made that meme probably should apologize. Well, we were just having fun with the meme at the meme's expense.
At about the exact time we were recording last week, Jake Tonjes signed with the Niners. He was a restricted free agent. Like awesome. $8 million 2 years. This guy, obviously, he was undrafted. He's not exactly a George Kittle. He's more of a mismatch problem. He's more of a receiver playing tight end. So that's going to let him hit him on the field a little bit. I know that Kittle loves mentoring this kid and just, I mean, how Kittle is like that. And I think, during the draft, you give us one more tight end, like a Tanner Koziel or like Max Clare. And I think that the tight end room here at San Francisco would, be ready to develop for the future. I mean, you got to have George Kittle, I'm sure he's going to finish his career here. I mean, he's talked about that before, and no matter how many years he has left, this is one of those guys that's just a pro's pro. And, so Jake Tonjes, that's good. It's good signing, man, especially for the price, $4 million a year, 2 years. And like I said, besides that,
when did we record? Did we record on March 10th? March 13th was a Friday. March 11th was a Wednesday.
Yeah, it was a Wednesday. It was Wednesday afternoon.
We will pull up every transaction from March 12th. Mm-hmm. I've got the transactions page on SpotTrack on my phone loaded up. So I will pull up every transaction from March 12th and above and read it.
Oh, yeah. And with that Jake Tonjes news, I in my new orphan fantasy football team, I just traded. I gave up Jacoby Brissett and I got Jake Tonjes.
That's pretty good.
And I like that one.
That's very good value. Dre Greenlaw designated post June 1st released on March 12th. I'm pretty sure that's the guy the Niners just picked up the other day. Yash Nijman retired. Durham Smythe, former Notre Dame tight end, signed a contract with the Ravens. So they're going to replace Isaiah Likely with Durham Smythe. That's the Ravens' master plan. Yeah, really, that's a really good master plan, Baltimore. I'm being sarcastic, of course, when I say that, William.
Yeah.
Keaton Mitchell signed with the Chargers. post-June 1st release for Tua. We know he's on the Falcons. Nate Hobbs, post-June 1st release. Orlando Brown Jr., 2-year, $32 million extension that pays him $16 million per year. Willie Gay Jr., 1-year contract with the Dolphins. Landon Dickerson, 3-year restructured extension with the Eagles. Jonathan Allen signed a 2-year, $26 million deal with the Bengals. That's a good move for them. Gives them some more bodies, some more defensive tackle depth. Rashad White, 1-year deal with the Commanders. Jaquan Brisker, $5.5 million deal with the Steelers. He can start at strong safety. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 6-year deal with the Bills. You know, Gardner-Johnson was on the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, and he's on the Lions the year they lost to the Niners in the NFC Championship. So Gardner-Johnson on the Bills. Maybe he gets a Super Bowl ring with the Bills. We'll see. Kyler Murray, $1.3 million. That's the term sheet. $1.3 million.
Well, he's still getting paid like 30, 35 from
Cardinals, but he's only getting $1 million. Sorry for the Dr. Evil meme, but it's like if Justin Jefferson's going to carry Kyler Murray like he's mini-me in Austin Powers, we're gonna have some fun here with these Dr. Evil memes. But yeah, it's like Calvin Austin, $1.5 million. Bryce Huff retired. Sean Bunting Murphy signed a 1-year, $3 million restructured deal with the Cardinals. The terms of the Michael Pittman trade. Rams corner Jacoby Durant joins the Cowboys. Nate Hobbs on the Niners, 1-year, $4 million. Well, and that's very good value on a 1-year prove-it deal for Nate Hobbs.
Yeah, for sure. You know, this is what I was talking about the other day with Shanahan bringing in these 1-year.
They need to upgrade over Upton Stout too. And as much as I like Upton Stout, he's not a high upside corner. Yeah. I think Nate Hobbs is a good short-term bridge at nickel corner.
Yeah, very much. You know, and the Niners are actually getting a lot of moves going so far.
I like Hobbs and Green the most of their corners. I would move Lenore back to nickel where he excelled during his rookie deal, but I don't think the Niners are going to move Lenore back to nickel. Some say Lenore's their best corner, even though he's covering number 2 receivers while Green's covering the number 1s. Some say Lenore's their best corner. I don't think he's moving back to the outside, but if we're up to me, I probably would move Lenore back to nickel because that's where he had the most success during his rookie deal. Because I think Hobbs is a higher ceiling than Lenore, but Hobbs is also a liability with his injury history as well. But at $4 million, that's a very good deal.
Yep.
Drew Tranquill, 1-year extension. Arnold Ebiketie, the former Falcons edge rusher, signs a 1-year, $7.3 million deal with the Eagles. Brian Burns converts signing bonus to clear 15.1. Jacoby Myers, 3.76. Quinn Miners, Jonathan Cooper convert some of their salary into signing bonus. Jalen Tolbert, former Cowboy, signs a 1-year deal with the Dolphins. Dalvin Tomlinson, 1-year, $7.5 million contract with the Chargers. I like that move. It gives the Chargers more beef up front. And if we get a Chargers-Browns playoff game, like I told Joey, it's going to be the former Brown, Dalvin Tomlinson, that sends Cleveland packing. That's going to be the storyline. Algerius Sneed cut by the Titans to save $11.4 million. Jamari Sallier signs a deal with the Dolphins. I mean, that name's familiar. Rasheed Walker signs a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Panthers to be a swing tackle. I think Ekwonu tore his Achilles versus the Rams in the wild card game. So if Ekwanu's out all of this year, Rasheed Walker's probably going to be the blind side, but only on a 1-year deal. I think Ekwonu will get extended, but he won't play this season. And then Tua, 1-year, $1.215 million, so he gets less money than Kyler Murray. And now we're on to March 13th. So we're on to March 13th here, and Dalvin Tomlinson happened yesterday. Geno Stone signs with the Bills, former Bengals free safety. Nick Bosa converts salary into signing bonus to save $17.1 million for your Niners. The Browns got Kalia Davis this morning. and the Nick Bosa restructuring happened this morning as well.
Yeah.
So now we're all caught up on transactions in the NFL.
Yes, sir. And it sounds like Joey Bosa's coming to San Fran for a year as well.
I think they were going to get both the Bosa brothers.
So then we're going to have Bosa in
Yep.
order, with the cowboy we got the other day, Osa. So we got Bosa.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, that's the best joke I got this morning. Anyway, other than that, no, man, we've definitely done more than say last year. Last year was kind of expected some big things that after coming out and
I'll read the top 10 teams in cap space and then we'll get into the group mod.
Yeah.
We've got 64 picks. We got to get into that. So, okay, actually 65 teams have picked, but top 10 teams in cap space at number 10 with $40 million, the Detroit Lions. The Lions, they have a lot of money to spend, and I'm guessing they're going to spend a bulk of that on guys in the guys on rookie deals. I would guess they're going to spend a chunk of, because they can always use a fifth-year tender on Gibbs and Jack Campbell if they don't want to pay, because running backs and middle linebackers, those are not positions that command a lot of money through second contracts. So I'm guessing they'll fifth-year tender both of those 2023 first-round picks. And then, or I think they tendered both those picks last year, I believe. No. The tenders take effect this season because 2023, 2024, 2025, and then the fifth-year tenders take effect in May. So they're saving some of that money to tender Gibbs, and I'm guessing that they're also saving some money to extend Laporta, if I had to guess, William, because you look at the Lions 2023 draft, the 2 day 2 picks they made, Brian Branch at strong safety and Sam Laporta at tight end. You could argue those guys are the most two deserving players of extensions from that Lions 2023 draft. Even though Gibbs was good, even though Jack Campbell was good, I think you could argue, William, that of the Lions 2023 draft class, Brian Branch and Sam Laporta, the two guys they got outside of the first round, are probably the most deserving of an extension. So, and with $40 million, you have to think the Lions are going to try to lock up two of those players. They're going to use fifth-year tenders on Gibbs, and they're going to use a fifth-year tender on Jack Campbell, but they're going to try to lock up Laporta or Gibbs. Or not Laporta and Gibbs. They're going to try to lock up Laporta, or they could lock up Gibbs, though. That's the thing. Now that the third year of the rookie deal is up, if they want to lock up Gibbs or Jack Campbell long term, they have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
They also have the ability to lock up Sam Laporta and Brian Branch, two 2023 draft picks that enter the final year of their rookie deals.
Yep.
So I think the Lions, they're going to try to lock up. They're not going to lock up Branch unless they can get him on a 2-year deal because they like Branch, but I think they would rather pay Gibbs long-term before they pay Branch long-term. But because Gibbs is a running back, they want a fifth-year tender him versus paying him long-term now.
Yeah.
And that's smart. That's the correct approach to take. So I don't see the Lions being any more active in free agency with only a meager $40 million.
Yeah.
Because they still haven't found a left tackle to replace Taylor Decker, who they cut. They might move right tackle Penei Sewell to left tackle, but for only $40 million, I think they are going to try to lock up as many of those core players as possible, William. They locked up Aiden Hutchinson. They locked up Jameis Williams. They locked up Kirby Joseph. They've locked up a lot of players from the 22 draft. I think they want to lock up a lot of guys from 2023.
Yeah.
All right, next up at number 9 is the Indianapolis Colts. They paid Daniel Jones $50 million. They traded Michael Pittman. And again, they're in the same spot as Detroit. Jonathan Taylor and Quentin Nelson, the left guard, and the running back, the two best players in the Colts offense are UFAs next year. I don't think the Colts are going to be big spenders. They were only big spenders on Daniel Jones because that's amazing. The Colts pay Daniel Jones $50 million, and they pay Alec Pierce $29 million. They still have $43 million left to spend. That's amazing,
Yeah.
Will. For how much they've spent, that's amazing that they still have those two.
Yeah. Well, this Colts team was all they had to find was Daniel Jones. It was they had a good team around him. All they needed was a plug and play quarterback. and
Yeah,
they
I
found
agree.
that. So, and it looks like they have a pretty bright future for
And they
at
just
least
need
next.
to pay Taylor and Nelson. I don't see them making any more moves in free agency. I think they're going to try to extend Taylor. They're going to try to extend Quentin Nelson.
Yeah.
And then they're going to build through the draft.
Yep.
Yes.
And that is a correct approach exactly for what they're doing here.
Going
And
back.
sweet.
Yeah. We finished up our MLB previews and we went through the NFL transactions that took place the last 2 days. Do you want to say anything about the Guardians before we get back to our NFL cap space tangent where we talk about the top 10 teams in cap space, how they're going to continue to utilize that cap space moving forward? What do you want to talk about between those topics? Because I'm just curious, Joey, of those 2 topics, which would you prefer to talk about? All right, I'll get back to the cap space tangent because, okay, your mic disappeared for a second, Joey. All right, the audio did. Your mic's probably working fine, but the audio. At number 8 in cap space is the Seattle Seahawks. They did pay Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. They prioritized the tackles over the running backs. But yes, they prioritized the tackles over the running backs. Seattle did. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba is probably going to get paid next year, and so is Devin Witherspoon, because those guys, I'm sure Seattle would like to lock those guys up now, but if they can't lock those guys up now, they'll use a 5th-year tender on both players and then lock them up next offseason when they have a little bit more clarity on their cap situation. So I don't see Seattle doing anything else, because with only $43 million and 2 players, your number 1 corner, Witherspoon, your number 1 receiver, Smith-Njigba, you want to lock those guys up. Even if it depletes your salary cap space, you would like to lock one of those guys up, William, I would think. But you want to use 5th-year tenders on both players, but you'd also like to lock up one of those guys now if you can.
Yeah, that would definitely be the preferable option right there, man. You know, I mean,
if you could lock up both, that'd be great. But it's like, I think Seattle's waiting to lock up both guys, and if they have any cap space to spend after that, they will make moves post June 1st.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
because I don't think they're done making moves in free agency, but I also think with only $44 million to spend right now, if your goal is to lock up JSN and Witherspoon, and then whatever you have left for this year, you use that to spend on free agency and the draft
and replacing the guys that you lost this year. You know, all of a sudden you win that Super Bowl.
Charbonnet is another candidate for extension too. Mm-hmm. You lost Kenneth Walker, so if you don't draft a running back in this draft, you are going to have to pay Charbonnet what he wants, and you're not going to have any leverage.
Yeah.
You also have to look at next year's draft. I like the array of number 2 receivers in this next year's draft. In this year's draft, they got a great bunch of number 2 receivers, but next year's draft, you have Smith,
Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith,
Williams. You have
Coleman.
Yeah, you have a plethora of number 1 receivers next year. So
Ryan Wingo from Texas. So there's a lot of number 1s in next year's draft. I think I had 7 receivers in the first round of my 2027 mock back in August. Nick Barsh, Michigan State. Yeah, so there's a plethora of number 1 guys in next year's class.
Yeah, this year you're going to have teams fighting for those first 3 guys. Next year, you're not going to have anybody fighting for anybody past the first 2, because you're still going to get a number 1 late into the first round, more than likely. So you can look at this thing and say, yeah, Seattle can save money and re-sign the corner, but they don't have, as much as they would love to, they don't have to re-sign Jackson Smith-Njigba.
That's why I'm thinking the Seahawks will tender Smith-Njigba and they'll extend Witherspoon since they lost Tariq Woolen. That's what I'm thinking.
Because next year's draft, if a team needs a receiver, we could see a lot of wide receiver moves that we normally wouldn't see, because next year's first round, and even early in the second round, they got a lot of number 1s that are spread out there. So they don't necessarily, so where you're spending huge amounts of money, like on Alec Pierce, who's making nearly $30 million this year, you're not going to get that next year. It is going to bottom out, because all these rookies coming in have so much talent involved.
And that's where Seattle could
give the NFL organizations more leverage than the players and agents. That's basically what's going to happen.
Yes. It's going to give them a hell of a lot more because we usually don't see this much talent at receiver coming out.
And 2028 has two studs already as well. You have Malachi Toney of the Miami Hurricanes, and you have Decorey Moore of the Oregon Ducks, who would both be top 10 picks in 2028 right now with their very good freshman seasons at Miami, Florida, and Oregon. I'm not going to get that in depth with the receiver class for 28, but those two had very good freshman years. They would both be top 10 picks in 2028 right now.
Yeah, so the two biggest depth pieces in next year's draft, surprisingly, are the two pieces that Seattle's probably going to be needing to look at. That's quarterback and receiver. And so Seattle,
if you want to go past 2028, which I won't, the top two high school recruits entering college, Tristan Keys, he was an LSU commit that decommitted from LSU to go to Tennessee. And then Chris Henry Jr., the son of former wide receiver Chris Henry Sr., who's going to Ohio State. So Chris Henry Jr. is going to replace Carnell Tate at Ohio State as the Buckeyes reload that wide receiver room. And then Aaron Brown, a 2027 recruit, is going to replace Jeremiah Smith. So Ohio State's already got a 4-star player ready to replace Tate and a 5-star player ready to replace Smith.
But it really, I don't know if it was intentional or not the way Seattle did this, but Seattle set it up almost in a way that says, we know where the depth of the draft lies a couple years ahead of schedule, and now we're ready for it. So I got to give Seattle credit, whether they want to or not. They deserve credit for their forethought.
And something I told William yesterday on the show Wednesday after you left is if Seattle cuts Cooper Kupp in 2027, they save $14 million in cap space if they cut Cooper Kupp after next season in 2027, right when the wide receiver draft is going to be ridiculously good. So the timing works out logistically for them at receiver. So,
It really does.
okay, I've got a quick question from Tracy Porter, and then we'll get to Williams Niners. Do you think Caleb Porter will fall out of the top 10 because of his torn meniscus injury? I don't. I don't think he'll fall out of the top 10. I think that's a smokescreen by a lot of teams like the Cowboys. I don't think the torn meniscus is as severe as people are making it out to be. I think a lot of teams outside of the top 10, mainly the Cowboys, Dolphins at 11, Cowboys at 12, are fabricating that report so that they can get Caleb Downs without having to give up a king's ransom to get him in a trade. So,
Yep. I didn't see a ton of that, dude.
okay, so the dog bag. I might need that later, but yeah. Okay, so next up on the salary cap space list, at number 6, we've mentioned the Lions, the Colts, the Seahawks. Number 7 on the salary cap list, your Niners. So they've got $46 million to spend for free agency. I think of the teams we've mentioned, I think they're the most likely to be proactive because, the Niners, most of their core guys are already paid. McCaffrey's been paid. Kittle's been paid. Brock Purdy's been paid. Trent Williams is in the final year of his contract. They could save some money to extend him, but I think they want to pay him less than they're currently paying him because even though Trent Williams is still a really good left tackle, we had 18 different left tackles win player of the game last year, a record at left tackle, and none of those left tackles were Trent Williams. I know Joey would argue there's not 18 to 20 left tackles in the NFL better than Trent Williams. That may be true, but there were 18 to 20 that outperformed Williams on a game basis, not in terms of consistency, but in terms of having dominant games last year.
Right.
So the Niners are at a crossroads here with Trent Williams, who's 37 now. Do they want to pay him? They want him to restructure his current contract, and if he doesn't, they might cut him. I don't think they're going to cut him. I think that's just a BS rumor. With $46 million in cap space, it makes zero sense to cut Trent Williams if he won't restructure, but it gives you less incentive to re-sign him if he struggles this season.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's time that we spent, a reasonably high draft pick on someone to groom. I mean,
Most of the
because
Niners guys they've paid. That's why I'm thinking they're going to be the most aggressive of these remaining teams. Lions, they've got 40 million, but they're probably going to try to lock up Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Laporta, or Brian Branch. Colts, they're going to try to lock up Quentin Nelson and Jonathan Taylor.
yep,
Seahawks, we mentioned the players they're going to try to lock up with their cap space. The Niners don't really have anybody. All the good players in the Niners are locked up at the moment.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I think
And it's like this year,
they're going to be the most aggressive of the teams left.
and this year in free agency, all we've lost are some depth pieces, and obviously easily replace them with some stability and with some of these players, and like I said, that's like in our group mock, I ended up picking, the best left tackle on the board at 27. And I can see that being one of those things here, because a lot of the wide receivers that fit here and that Shanahan's been, linked to, that has been looking at, are available possibly later, and I think Shanahan's trying to decide who he should take with that first pick, and I think it's likely going to be alignment. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what everything's pointing to right now.
I'd like to add to what you said, and I would say, for me, I think they would have mind-altering substances in their system if they wanted to get rid of Silverback Williams. But at the same time, I could see at 27, I think a very good fit to put behind Silverback in their offense to learn from him would be the Clemson right tackle. He's playing right tackle at Clemson, but I think he has the ability to be a left tackle. Forget his name. His first round.
I have him in the third round. It's Blake Miller, but the player I'm looking at for San Francisco is Northwestern's Caleb Tiernan. Can play both left and right tackle. Went 7 for 7 against Mateo Ugalele. I love Caleb Tiernan. I think he is the best fit for the Niners if you can't land Spencer Fano, who you took in the group mock.
He'd be a nice fit as well. So I think either one of them would be a good fit. Put him behind Silverback. Let him learn for a year or two, because Silverback's still going to be one of the top 2 or 3 offensive linemen in the game, regardless of anything we say or anything anybody else says. And if you disagree with that, he'll punch you in the face. So he's just that good at 40 years old. So
Williams didn't win player of the game in any of the game recaps we did for the Niners last year, but I also don't think he's a guy who can replace in this draft. So that says a lot about him and his ability.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next team after Williams Niners is the Ravens, 51 million. The Niners have 46 million, Seattle 44, Colts 43, Lions 40 million. So that's the top. Ravens are number 6 on the top 10 teams with the most cap space. The Ravens have 51 million. This is after paying Lamar Jackson 62 million a year, 62 or 63 million a year, and after paying Trey Hendrickson. The Ravens still have the 6th most cap space after paying Lamar and after paying Trey Hendrickson.
I don't like what the Ravens are doing right now. I didn't really care for their coaching hire. You guys were all a lot higher on Jesse Minter than I was. The letting go of Linderbaum kind of destabilizes their offensive line a little bit. Firing the coach was not my first. Firing Harbaugh is not my first thought. I knew it was probably going to happen, but it wasn't my first. I don't think the Ravens won.
You know what's worse, Joey? You know what's worse? Harbaugh wasn't even fired in person. They called him over the Ravens owner called him over the phone as he was coming home from a golf game in his car to fire him.
That's horrible.
Professional, man.
That's terrible.
They didn't even fire him in person. They fired him over a phone call as he's driving home from golfing.
Yeah, that's like getting broken up over a text message, dude. That's
that's Dear John letter type deal. That ain't cool. That ain't cool. So I think the Ravens are in a bad spot right now, and I still think they're going to win the division based on the fact that the division is really bad. I think the Steelers took 3 steps back. I think the Bengals took 1 step back, and I think the Browns have done a great job because of the offensive line signings. I think the Ravens win, but I think that's more because of the division they're playing in and how many steps back
I could see the Bengals simply because they have the easiest strength of schedule outside of the Browns. I could see the Ravens winning the division. Shit, I could see the Browns winning this division if they have a perfect draft, because it does feel a lot more wide open than usual. But I think whoever wins this division, because I look at the AFC East runner-up and I look at the AFC West runner-up between the Chargers and Chiefs. I think both of those teams could beat the AFC North winner in a wild card game right now. This division's just in a really flux state.
Well, at the moment, I didn't like the whole Monken hire, thing, whatever they did in Baltimore, and it kind of seems like everyone else got a little bit stronger there because they
did hire Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle, who served under Ben Johnson last year. If the Ravens get back to the playoffs, it's not going to be because of Minner. It's going to be because of Declan Doyle, I think.
Yeah.
And Doyle's going to get poached if they get back to the playoffs this year. Whereas if they don't make it this year and they make it to the AFC title next year with Minner and Doyle, then Doyle will get poached next offseason in 2020.
So then it could be like, Doyle rules.
Yeah, Declan Doyle, Doyle rules, Billy Madison.
Sorry, had to. Anyway.
No worries.
But yeah, that's my piece on Baltimore, man. It seems like everyone else.
Yeah, Baltimore.
It seems like Baltimore is in the middle of this group of the AFC North is in flux probably for the first time in over a decade, and Baltimore just seems to be the best position to continue to rule over it.
We're both going to take a step back this year due to tough strengths of schedules. I think either the Bengals or your Browns are going to win the division. I can't believe I'm saying that I'm considering picking the Browns to win the division, but I just think this year we're going to see a team with a really easy strength of schedule seize the AFC North, and then they're going to lay an egg versus the Chiefs, Chargers, or Patriots or Bills. Whoever they draw between those four, they're going to whoop them in their own stadium. That's kind of what I'm projecting right now.
Yeah.
And I got to see the Browns draft a legit left tackle before I consider picking them to win the division. But that's where I'm at with the lack of action in the.
If they bring back Cam Robinson, I'm rioting. One-man riot. We're going to see how far it goes.
That's kind of like if my Niners don't draft Max Clare, man, there's going to be a one-man riot.
Yeah, it's like the Nation of Joe from The Simpsons. It's like, hey, I'm Joe. I'm Joe.
Yeah, if the Browns bring back Cam Robinson, it's going to be like the scene in Old School where Will Ferrell decides to go streaking. And then Drew Carey's going to get pissed off. He's going to join in the riot. And then Joey's going to want to riot too, but he's going to want to distance himself from Will Ferrell in Old School and Drew Carey. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been sitting at my church table and then anointed myself and pick it back up and walk inside.
But yes, the Ravens, they did bring in Trey Hendrickson. They paid Lamar $62 million a year. I really haven't seen any other splash moves on their part. They do have money to spend, but I'm wondering where they're going to spend that money. I think they're probably good. I think they already paid Kyle Hamilton, so and they let Linderbaum walk. They didn't even give him a fifth-year tender, which was just very stupid and short-sighted. It was very stupid not to give Linderbaum a fifth-year tender because they had the option to do that last year. They just chose not to do that. So that was very stupid by the Ravens.
I'm going to project a little bit because I've been paying a little bit of attention to draft pick salaries now. I know, I'm pretty sure the Ravens are going to have to spend around $10 million on their draft picks this year.
Yes.
So that's $10 million of that 50-some million. So that leaves them about 40-something million to spend. And honestly, unless they spend it on a receiver, I don't see where they spend it. I think they just stay
Are
put.
they saving money to pay Zay Flowers? That's what I'm wondering, because they're probably going to fifth-year tender him, but are they saving this money to give Zay Flowers a lengthy contract? Because if they're not, then you can't really justify not spending the money. Unless you're saving that money for extending Zay Flowers, you can't really justify not spending the money. Because they've already paid Rashad Bateman and they paid Mark Andrews. If they're saving the money to pay Zay Flowers, that's understandable, Joey. But otherwise, it's not really, can't really get behind what they're doing. All right, number 5, we have the Arizona Cardinals with $52 million. They just lost their quarterback. They did add Isaac Sumalo from the Steelers to be their new left guard. And Joey reported that Marvin Harrison Jr. may be on the trade block. I think that's because Michael Wilson, the 3rd-round pick out of Stanford, had more receiving yards than Harrison Jr. did last year. There were games where Wilson looked like the number 1 and Harrison Jr. just disappeared. And I still think Trey McBride's the best weapon on that offense, but
Very much.
From what I'm hearing, the new general manager does not like any of the draft picks from the previous regime. So that's why he's getting rid of everybody. Now, how much he can get, I don't think he gets rid of McBride. I think McBride's done enough to force his hand to keep
Cardinals
him.
don't have a new GM yet. Monty Ossenfort from the 2023 draft still is the Cardinals GM.
Is he?
They have a new,
I heard that he is not happy with the draft picks made by the previous people. So maybe they were talking about the coach and the influence he had in drafting. I don't know.
Well, they let Zaven Collins 2021 first-round pick walk, and the Cardinals have some 22 draft picks. I think they let walk as well. So 2023 was Monty Ossenfort's first draft, and that was the draft where the Cardinals took Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle, 7th overall, after trading down with the Texans. So I think Monty Ossenfort's going to pay Paris Johnson Jr. Or they're going to, I think they're probably going to try to lock him up because they don't really have very many building blocks outside of McBride locked up right now. And they're in a unique position where right now their quarterback competition is looking like 2 floor quarterbacks. Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew. Those are the 2 guys that are, and I don't think either guy's guaranteed the starting job. I think both guys are going to get an opportunity to compete for it because both of them are floor quarterbacks with very low ceilings.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of quarterbacks that could actually step in there and compete or win that job. There are absolutely a few, and that includes some in the draft like Carson Beck and a couple others like
Yeah, because all I heard was that the general manager did not like the previous regime's picks. So that might be a Gannon thing. And to your guys' point, there are some stable quarterbacks in this draft that are not developmental, but at the same time, they're more just stable, like the Carson Beck. Like William
We
said.
have 4 QBs that have been picked in the group mock. We'll get to that in a second, but we're going to go through the rest of the teams in terms of cap space. I do like the Cardinals players that they've drafted on defense. Will Johnson, Denzel Burke, Walter Nolan. They do have a lot of good defensive players. They added the former Eagles pass rusher, not Bryant. Who am I thinking of? Josh Sweat. Yeah, last free agency. They still have Budda Baker. So I do like the foundation they're building. They got Sean Murphy Bunting back on a restructured deal for $3 million. I think Connor's back on a restructured deal too. But yeah, the Patriots at $53 million. They've made a lot of splashes. I mean, Elliott Wolf's made a lot of splashes. I think the only areas you could argue nose tackle and wide receiver 1 are probably the only areas the Patriots have to grab starters at in the first 2 rounds of the draft. They can get depth players in rounds 3 through 7, which is not a luxury a lot of teams have in this draft cycle, Joey. So, yeah, they're in a great spot. They have $53 million. I'm sure they're going to try to spend some of that on Christian Gonzalez. If they can't get Christian Gonzalez now, I think what they'll do is they'll give Gonzalez a 5th-year tender, and then they'll pay both Drake May and Christian Gonzalez next offseason if they can't pay Gonzalez now. Because I think that's why Wolf's saving the $53 million, because he knows he's going to have to pay those 2 guys. Like, those 2 guys have done enough to earn a second contract with the team. And I think Wolf is holding that money knowing he's going to have to pay those 2. Because 2028 is when Gonzalez's second deal will take effect, and 2029 is when Drake May's second contract would take effect. So Elliott Wolf knows he's going to have to pay those 2, which is why he's being very frugal in terms of contract negotiations, only handing out 2 3-year deals with these free agents. He gave Dobbs a 4-year deal because he's 25 and he's young enough to where you can justify giving Dobbs a 4-year deal. You can't really justify that with the other free agents you've added. But it's a very calculated, methodical approach that Elliott Wolf's taking.
Well, I actually talked with a coworker about the Romeo Dobbs signing, and we agreed that, well, I've always been a fan of Dobbs, you know that, but we agree is like, with Green Bay is like, pick your receiver this week and see what happens, you know, it's like the receiver of the month, you know, so you can't really, you have to really look at the tape on Dobbs to really get a handle, because you can't look at anything else. Because it's a receiver of the month award in Green Bay. And that's what it's been for a very long time. But personally, I love the signing.
Okay, the cap hit and the dead cap have not been revealed for Romeo Dobbs yet, but his contract expires in 2030. So, but you'll have him as a building block for Drake May, unless Spotrac doesn't have the numbers. Neither does Over the Cap. So the numbers have not been disclosed. It's 68. It's 4 years, 70 million, 68 million, but about 17 to 20 million per year for the next 4 years for Romeo Dobbs. They got KJ Britt to replace the linebacker next to Spillane. They got Kevin Byard to replace Jalen Hawkins. They got Elijah Vera Tucker at left guard. They have made some sneaky good. My Patriots have made some sneaky good moves. And outside of nose tackle and a wide receiver 1, if you don't think Dobbs is a wide receiver 1, outside of those 2 positions, I think the Patriots are set everywhere else. They got Draymond Jones to replace K'Lavon Chasen. So they've made a lot of moves in free agency to position themselves as one of the top 3 teams in the league, along with the Chiefs and Bills. I think the Chiefs, Bills, and Patriots, those 3 are the class of the AFC right now. You could argue the Chargers as well if their tackles are healthy, but it's a big if. But those 4 teams, and the Chargers have $60 million cap space. That tells me they are going to save that money to pay a lot of their 2024 and 2025 draft picks. Because you look at the 2024 draft picks that they're going to have to pay next year. Joe Alt, if he's healthy. You're looking at Cam Hart, Tarheeb Still. A lot of guys from that 24 draft you're going to have to pay eventually. Lad McConkey, too. So, yeah, I almost forgot Lad McConkey. What the hell is wrong with me, William, right? But, yeah, it's like, yeah, with $60 million, the Chargers are clearly saving their money knowing they're going to have to pay a lot of guys from their group next year. Because that's the only reason for them to be so frugal in terms of this free agency. And the Chargers did make an addition. They added Dalvin Tomlinson from the Cardinals for $7.5 million. And they drafted a good nose tackle in 2025 out of Oregon who had a good rookie year. But now he's going to be the nose tackle, too. And Tomlinson's going to be the nose tackle 1. And you're going to have a lot of depth up front at that nose tackle spot, which isn't a bad thing. They got Khalil Mack back on a restructured deal. So they're not going to have any turnover at any of the key positions. And if everyone stays healthy, I think the Chargers can finish second in the AFC, as crazy as that sounds. So I think this year and next year are the 2 year is the 2-year window for Herbert to win a Super Bowl. And if he doesn't capitalize on it, he will be the guy who becomes the forgotten man of this era.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to be the Dan Marino of this era with Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Drake May, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. There's going to be multiple players that end up being the Dan Marino, Jim Kelly of this era where they don't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I think Herbert's got a 2-year window to avoid that. I think Lawrence is probably going to be in that
Herbert's
category.
got a chance because this team, they obviously had the stability come in with Harbaugh and just the team.
Mike McDaniel is offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
If he stays 2 years, I think the Chargers win 62. Not 61, but 62 in Atlanta. But 61 and 62 are the two I'm looking at for the Chargers. And then number 2 at $70 million, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders did make an effort to get some guys in free agency, just like the Patriots, but a lot of guys didn't have the Commanders or the Patriots as their first choice. In fact, the Commanders lost out on Romeo Doubs to the Patriots. So they did make a bid for Doubs, but it was only like 14, 15 million.
Yeah, but they're probably going to end up with Ayuk whenever he gets released, or if they think they can trade him, flip him for a pick, which is
definitely
what the story is now. They think that maybe.
And the number 1 team in cap space is the Tennessee Titans. They have $79 million even after going after corners in free agency, edge rushers. They made a lot of moves. And I would say right now, them and the Texans are the top 2 teams in the South. And the fact that Joey agrees with me, that speaks volumes. That really does speak volumes about how bad the Jags and Colts off seasons have been. All right, so in terms of cap space, the bottom 10 is the Chiefs at $20 million, $20.6 million, the Falcons at $20.3 million, the Bengals at $25 million, the Dolphins at $11 million, Vikings at $10 million, Jags at $10 million, Browns at $7 million, Bears at $1.4 million, the Buccaneers at $972,000, and the Bills at $151,000 over the cap. So the Bills or the Buccaneers are going to have to lose someone.
Well, that's not counting the adjusted cap period. The adjusted cap number, I think it was made official yesterday, I think. Or was that the unofficial number?
I think it does count those guys, but we'll see.
Because the adjusted for the Browns was $26 million over the cap. So was that an unofficial number where they just haven't finalized it yet, or what was the situation there?
This is based on the adjusted cap space, based on all officially top 51 NFL cap space, based on all officially processed contracts. So
something that was adjusted.
If the Patriots have $53 million and the terms of the Dobbs contract haven't been processed yet, that means that number's probably going to go down once the year by year hasn't been processed. The terms have been processed, but the year by year and the dead cap has not been processed. So
that's probably the discrepancy then, is that has not been processed yet.
So because that hasn't been processed yet, the Patriots are still in the top 10, but I think they'll probably slip down to the 7 through 10 range after that gets processed. If they don't, that's a hell of a move by Elliott Wolf. But yeah, it's like the Bills brought back Connor Montgomery. I'm looking at I'm looking at the Bills here. I'm trying to figure out what the hell they can do to save cap space because they're in the negative right now. But they brought back a lot of players. They got Dawson Knox back on an extension, but they restructured him. They don't have a left guard at the moment. They've got McGovern, Osiris Torrance. They've got 4 starters back, but they did lose David Edwards. And I'm kind of curious what they can do to get under the cap, because the Bills and Buccaneers are both going to have to make moves to get under the cap, because the Bills are the only team over the cap right now. I'm looking to see what they can do. There's only the only players they can cut to save cap space are Osiris Torrance, Dorian Williams. Basically, the only way they can save any cap space is if they cut or trade a 2023 draft pick entering the final year of his rookie deal. That's legitimately, they have to cut or trade a rookie in order to get under the cap. They're only 100K under. They are only 100K over the cap, Joey. So they could cut Josh Palmer and get under the cap. But they wouldn't have any money to sign their rookies.
Yeah, and that's where it comes in with what we were talking about previous, is that the money that hasn't been officially processed yet is going to come in. You still have that money to come in because you don't know what the official number is going to be.
I think what Brandon Beane's going to do, he's going to say, all right, we're 100K over the cap. That's not good, but let's just get this year's draft class signed, and then let's see who we have to cut post June 1st to get under the cap. I think that's the approach Beane's taking.
Yeah, because you can't really count on the league when it comes to stuff like this. You got to take proactive approach.
I could be wrong on that, Joey, but that would be my educated guess.
Yeah, Brandon Beane is going to take a proactive approach. He's not going to rely on anybody else. He's going to probably release a couple of people, get his draft picks going, and then be done with it.
Okay, Spot Track says the Buccaneers only have $500K in cap space, but Over the Cap says they have $40 million. So who's right here? That's a huge difference. Spot Track and Over the Cap are the top two salary cap websites. So if Spot Track's saying the Buccaneers only have $500K to spend and Over the Cap saying they have $40 million to spend, who's right here? Because that's a massive difference in cap space. $500K versus $40 million. That's not a small difference. That's a very significant difference in money, Joey. So who the hell is right here? I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't sound that enthusiastic, but it's like, really? All right. Enough dilly-dallying. I think we've gone over all the teams. We'll get into the group mock here. I've got all the picks posted on our Facebook page, so I don't have to reload the simulator. If you guys would just rather talk about the picks, I can load the simulator and I can click on the picks as they were made. What would you guys rather do? I will give you guys input on that, and then we will make a decision moving forward. Should I just load the picks from our Facebook group, or would you prefer if I load the simulator as we discussed each pick in the group mock? I'm going to let you and Joey iron that out while I throw this glass of water in the dishwasher. So we already go over picks in the group mock, but the question is, do you want me to just use the Facebook page where all the picks have been made, or do you want me to load up the simulator? Because I can do either one. I'm flexible enough to do either one. I'll just use I'll just go on the group mock on Facebook and load up all the picks then to save us time, because if I load up the simulator, I'll have to click on every pick, even if that means going to the bottom of the simulator and then picking said player.
Yeah, don't do that. Just load up the page.
Yeah, load up the Facebook page. That's what I figured.
Yeah.
All right, what we'll do. We're still waiting on David Koning at the Titans. David Koning and the Titans still have yet to pick at 66, but we'll worry. David has not checked his messages, so we'll just wait for David. We're not going to worry about I'm going to click on this, and then it's going to load all the picks. All right, so we'll screen share this, and then we'll hold on here. I'm going to screen share this, and then we'll do the hold on. No, I want to, let's go in and let's do this, and then we'll screen share Facebook group mock, and then we'll okay. And then we'll figure out if we want to talk about bracketology or call it a day. But yeah, Mendoza was the first pick in the group mock. Fernando Mendoza, the Doza went to the Raiders. They took him first overall. That's not a surprise. The Jets took Arvell Reese, who is 18th on my simulator, number 2 overall. I have him as a middle linebacker. He could get converted to edge rusher. The Cardinals took David Bailey as a pass rusher next to Josh Sweat at 3. The Titans took Reuben Bain Jr. at 4. Reuben Bain Jr., my number 2 player, not named Mendoza. I really like that addition for the Titans. The Giants took Caleb Downs at free safety. Joey took Carnell Tate at number 6. That's a good move by Joey. He gets his wide receiver 1. Tracy took Jeremiah Love at 7.
That's going to be interesting.
Sonny Styles went to the Saints at 8. The Saints run a 34 defense, so I'm not exact. I think Sonny Styles is a really good weak side linebacker, but Saints run a 34 now, so I'm not exactly sure how Styles fits in that. But Abdel Abdallah, I can't blame him. Styles had an amazing combine. I'm not going to give him shit for that pick.
Yeah.
But the defensive scheme is my question mark. The Chiefs took Francis Mauigoa at right tackle, 9th overall, to replace Jawan Taylor. Keldrick Falk went to the Bengals. Ron Mont took Keldrick Falk. Mansour Delane went to the Dolphins. Dolphins have now cornerback Mansour Delane. That's a good pick for Dion Reed and the Dolphins. They get that number 1 lockdown corner. The Cowboys took Dylan Thieneman at strong safety. They still have Malik Hooker, but Hooker would probably be the backup or the free safety now. Jordan Tyson went to the Rams. So the Rams now have a receiver trio of Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Jordan Tyson, with Tyson playing in the slot. Kenyon Sadiq is a Raven. The Buccaneers took Akeem Mesidor. Tony Mario had Akeem Mesidor as the guy he wanted at 15. He was the only person that doubled up an edge rusher in this group mock. But yeah, Mesidor is going to be his right outside linebacker in the 34. The Jets replace Ola Vavega Ione, becomes the New York Jets left guard at 16. Anthony Russo picked him. Wes Langley took Caden Proctor at 17. Caden Proctor replaces Taylor Decker. The Vikings and Sean Lowry select Peter Woods at nose tackle. They get one of my preseason top 10 players at 18. The Chiefs got Tonga. I was going to mock Peter Woods, the Chiefs, but the Chiefs aren't going to pick Peter Woods at 9. Even if Woods is a top 10 player, they're not going to pick him at 9. They got Tonga and they've got Chris Jones. The fact that they were so proactive in getting Tonga and getting Kenneth Walker, and the Chiefs offered Pacheco $1.2 million, but the Commanders offered him $1.3 million. The Lions offered him $1.3 million. So the Chiefs made an attempt to get Pacheco back as a change of pace back to Kenneth Walker, but the Lions just offered $100K more. Anthony Hill Jr. is a Panther. I know the Panthers got a middle linebacker in free agency. They got Devin Lloyd. But here's the thing. As much as I like Devin Lloyd, and as much as I like the guy they drafted at Kentucky, I think Anthony Hill Jr. is better than the 3rd round pick they got up at Kentucky. So that's a good pick for them at 19. Cassius Howell goes to the Dallas Cowboys as an edge rusher here at 20. The Steelers take Mekhi Lemon at 21 to pair with Michael Pittman Jr. and DK Metcalf in the slot. The Chargers get Caden McDonald at nose tackle. So now you've got Dalvin Tomlinson. You've got the guy from Oregon you took last year. And you got Caden McDonald. Eagles take TJ Parker to be their number 1 edge rusher at 34 right outside linebacker. The Browns get Monroe Freeling to be their blind side. The Georgia left tackle becomes the Browns' blind side. Marcus Beer takes Christian Miller. I know the Bears already have Jervon Dexter and they have Grady Jarrett, but Miller would be the eventual guy next to those two. The Bills take Jacob Rodriguez at 26. You took Spencer Fano at 27, William. You want to talk about that? CJ Cuevas liked the pick, but he thinks Fano would be a guard in this situation.
Yeah.
He might be guard year 1, but then he would play left tackle when Williams left or retired.
That's kind of what I'm imagining there. And I think what Shanahan's going to do at the end of the first round, I think they're going to have some value there with with the pick, you know, that they possibly can't get later. And that's why I ended up picking, you know, an offensive lineman and Bono at that. You know, I mean, we've been linked to other tackles like Utah right tackle, Caleb Lomu. And
Lomu was the left tackle, actually, William. Fano was the right tackle, but Fano has experience at left tackle as well.
Yeah.
Because the year Lomu redshirted, Fano played left tackle, and he moved to right tackle in 2024.
Yeah.
And has played there the last 2 years.
Yeah. I think obviously, you know, three of our first picks are going to be an offensive lineman, a tight end, and a wide receiver somewhere in there. But like I said, there are wide receivers that have value later, like I mentioned Jacoby Lane before. Some of the other guys. This is about pretty deep wide receiver class. It's not top heavy, you know. It's pretty spread out, but you know, there's a lot of receivers in here that can be had later. So, like I said, safety might also be up there too. We've been linked to Michael Tabb from Texas, but that's more, you know, in the second round-ish, somewhere in there. He's already gone in our mock by the time.
We do have some breaking news, William. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is now the favorite to buy the Seattle Seahawks.
He's been trying to buy a team for a minute now, and Washington turned him down. Well, I think that was more the league turning him down. So it's going to be interesting, but yeah, not surprising at all.
Yes. Okay. Looking at the this is interesting. Marvin Ellikin from Marvin Ellikin, who is this? Fantasy Football Marv. He's Marvin Ellikin from the Fantasy Football Ballers. He posted a tight end prospect model. It's got Sadiq at 1, Stowers at 2, Max Clare at 3, Justin Jolly at 4, Jack Endries at 5, Michael Trigg at 6. His tight end model. Only 3 tight ends have been picked in the group mock, and it were the top 3 guys we mentioned. We'll get to Clare in a second. Jennings Dunker. I had him at 34 on the draft simulator, but I moved him up to 32 because I thought the Seahawks lost Abraham Lucas. I probably will move him back to 34 at a certain point after we do the group mock, but I'll leave him at 32 for now. He's a good right tackle option. I like Caleb Tiernan better, but he's a good right tackle option for the Texans. I'm not going to give Brad crap for that pick because I only have him slightly. I have the same potential grade on Dunker and Tiernan. Some like the attitude that Dunker has more than Tiernan, even though I think Tiernan's tape is better. Jermod McCoy goes to the Chiefs to replace Trent McDuffie. Denzel Boston's a Bronco. He pairs with Cortland Sutton, the guy William recruited. I took Elijah Surratt at 31. I was debating between Surratt and Derek Moore because Derek Moore had 10 sacks at Michigan, dominated the Senior Bowl. Surratt's a year younger. He's 6'2", 213, 10-inch hands, 44 touchdowns over 4 years. And he's a great route runner. I just felt like he's the best fit for us at 31. He was the third best player on the board. He was the second best player on the board behind D'Angelo Pons, Indiana teammate. And I just felt like he was the best fit for what New England needed at this spot.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
And if Dobbs doesn't emerge as that number 1 receiver, Surratt probably will. And you give Drake May that number 1, you keep that Super Bowl window alive. As long as you have a number 1 guy that gets 1,000 yards next year, that Super Bowl window is going to remain alive for New England. The playoff window, too.
Yeah.
But Omar Cooper Jr. went to the Seahawks. Riley took him because he knows Shaheed. He doesn't trust Shaheed. He doesn't trust Torrey Horton. Cooper Kupp only has 1 year left. So Omar Cooper Jr. might be a project, but a lot of people consider Jackson Smith-Njigba project his rookie year, and he turned out great as the number 1. And now he's going to be locked up. So we're on to round 2. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, free safety, Toledo ends up kicking off round 2. That is a great pick. I have a first on him. Caleb Tiernan to the Cardinals is a right tackle. Again, really good value there by Jordan Alexander in round 2. Avian Terrell goes to the Titans, and David Conan gets his cornerback 1. Derek Moore, 10 sacks at Michigan. I almost picked Derek Moore at 31. Orrin grabs him, though. I think Orrin's probably going to go a different route now that Max Crosby hasn't been traded. The Max Crosby trade got vetoed. The Ravens backed out of that. Logan Jones is a giant. Logan Jones had the lowest pass rush rate allowed, lowest sack rate allowed, won the Remington top center in the country. Logan Jones replaces, and I like the center of the Vikings. I know John Michael Schmidt's the Giants' 2023 second-round picks in the final year of his rookie deal, but I think Jones is a higher upside. And, if the Giants want to move on from John Michael Schmidt's and have another center on a rookie deal with John Michael Schmidt's injury history, Logan Jones makes a lot of sense here. Emmanuel Pregnan, the Oregon left guard, goes to the Texans. Joey takes tight end 2 Eli Stowers at 39 to pair with Fannin. I really like the pick here. You get more weapons for Shedeur Sanders. The Chiefs take Chris Brazzell the second. He will compete with Jalen Royals for the slot receiver job. And now you have another receiver on a rookie deal along with Xavier Worthy if you don't want to sign Rashee Rice. And I think if Rice gets – I did not have a Pro Bowl ceiling on Rashee Rice coming at SMU. And I think if Brazzell goes to the Chiefs, he could become – the Rashee Rice replacement if Rice has any slip-ups in his contract year or injuries. So I really like that pick. The Bengals take Brian Parker the second. Yes, he was a right tackle at Duke, but he can play either guard spot or center spot on the interior. He was the best player on the board. At worst, you're getting a very good swing guard, swing tackle, backup center, really good sixth man on your offensive line. That's the worst case scenario. And you just got to find a spot on that interior where I think Parker could start right away at center for the Bengals, because right now they've got the former Patriots backup center as their starting center still. I think Parker would be a day one starter at center for the Bengals. Saints get Jeremy Bernard. You said he's a Shanahan guy, but in this draft, he is a Saint, and he's going to be the number 2 guy to Olave.
Yeah. I think the Niners might have a little bit of interest in Jeremy Bernard, just watching his film and everything else. Yeah. He pretty much looks like Debo without the baggage. You mentioned he wasn't quite the route runner. Well, yeah, but there are things that he can get better at. But the guy can line up anywhere. And he runs like DJ Moore. Low to the ground,
true.
And so it's going to be interesting. Like I said, it's going to depend a lot on the value. I think
Agreed.
Draft, so and where that lands.
CJ Allen was one of 2 first-round players still on the board. The Dolphins take him as their 34 middle linebacker. The Jets get D'Angelo Pons here. I like this move. I know he's kind of small, but even with the corners the Jets have on the current roster, they lost Sauce Gardner. They need another lockdown guy, and I know Pons is 5'9", so maybe he's just a nickel corner, but he'll be a very good nickel corner. If he can play on the outside at 5'9" against significantly taller receivers and does well there, then you're looking at a potential stud. The Ravens take Jake Slaughter, my number 3 center out of Florida here, to replace Linderbaum. Joey doesn't like the fact that the Ravens lost Linderbaum, but they can get another center on a rookie deal in this draft. There's 3 good ones in Logan Jones, Pat Coogan, the Rose Bowl MVP for Indiana, and Jake Slaughter, my preseason number 1 center. There are 3 really good centers. As long as the Ravens get one of those guys in day 2, they're going to be okay. I think a lot of people are panicking about the Ravens center situation. As long as they come away with one of those 3, it's not going to be a disaster. Tony Mario took Kyle Lewis, a player I had mocked to Seattle at 9 in the preseason, Senior Bowl standout. So Tony Mario doubles up at edge rusher. He's the only person that doubled up at a position in the first 2 rounds of this group mock. Colts took Diego Pavia. Second QB comes off the board. But, if the Colts trade Anthony Richardson, if the Colts don't trade Anthony Richardson, congratulations, Indy. You spent your first pick on a 3rd-string quarterback. But I do think Pavia, I think I had a 93 for potential on Anthony. I'm trying to think. I had a 94 for potential on Bryce Young. I think I had a 93 for potential on CJ Stroud and a 92 on Richardson. I've got a 93 on Pavia. So Pavia might be barely his ceiling might be slightly higher than Richardson's. I don't know, but
Yeah.
both Richardson and Pavia are low floor, high ceiling players. So that's the risk. That's the drawback. And you can tell there's a laughing emoji right next to the pick. This is the pick that got the most roasting from anyone in the group mock. This was the pick that I think Scott Van Arst was picking for the Colts. Chris Johnson, San Diego State corner, goes to the Falcons. Emmanuel Watson picks him to pair with A.J. Terrell. The Vikings take Jonah Coleman. Only 2 running backs have been drafted, Jeremiah Love and Jonah Coleman, the consensus top 2 running backs. The Lions, Jayshon Barnum. He was Michigan's version of Arvell Reese, and Wes is drafting him as an edge rusher, just for clarity purposes. The Panthers get Pat Coogan. He is the replacement to Austin Corbett at center on that offensive line, and they just added Rasheed Walker on a 1-year deal. He's probably going to be the swing tackle, but if Ekwonu can't start for the Panthers, I'm guessing Rasheed Walker will get a second chance. The Packers took Brandon Sissy at corner. I have a backup grade on Brandon Sissy, but the Packers owner wanted to pick him with their first pick. The Steelers took Ty Simpson. He was the 3rd quarterback picked. The Eagles take Keegan Trost. They ran out of time, so they get a successor to Lane Johnson. Jonah Tolles, a Cowboys fan, loves Keegan Trost, believes he's way too low on boards. I agree with Jonah. I've got Trost at 34 in the simulator. But unfortunately, your Cowboys don't get him. Your division rival, the Eagles, does. The Chargers took Chase Bisnostis, left guard replacement to Zion Johnson at 55. The Jaguars take Taylon Green. So the 4th quarterback comes off the board. It's Arkansas's Taylon Green, not Carson Beck. It's Taylon Green. I don't know how you feel about this. Ken LeBlanc has Taylon Green as his number 1 QB in the draft. To be fair to Ken, he has Taylon Green as his QB1. Is this a little early for Taylon Green? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it is. There's obviously some questions. No one's doubting his athleticism or anything like that.
Well, Ken likes dual threats. Trevor Lawrence isn't a dual threat. Green is. So on Ken's team, he would start Green over Lawrence. So if you like Green that much that you'd start him over Lawrence and take him.
Yeah.
We're not going to judge, but others will. But yeah, it's like if you like him that much, take him.
Yeah.
The Bears, Michael Taffy, free safety out of Texas. That's your Jaquan Brisker replacement, courtesy of Marcus Beer in Austria. And then you got Max Clare at 58.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Max Clare, obviously, he's tight in one of this draft. Obviously, there's been workout warriors like Kenyon Sadiq, but he's a better blocker than he is receiver, considering everything. Also, Eli Stowers is a wide receiver playing tight end. He's much more suitable, which fits with the Brown thing. But Max Clare with the Niners, having a true wide tight end, someone to develop under George Kittle, and like I said, we signed Jake Tonjes there. He's another guy, but he's more of a receiver than a blocker so much. If whoever we get in this draft, I see Max Clare and I see Michael Trigg being the 2 best fits.
Well, here's the thing. I want to pull up the prospect model here by Marvin Ellikin. Tight end prospect model, points per game, 808 Kenyon Sadiq. At 709, Eli Stowers. At 3rd at 635 is Max Clare.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the projected model. Those are the only 3 guys above 6 for points per game. Anything below 6 is not a tight end that can develop into a Pro Bowler, according to this guy. And anything below a 5 is a backup. So they've got a 4.83 on Michael Trigg. So they're projecting him as a tight end 2. They're projecting Jolly and Jack Endries as low end tight end 1s.
Nah, I watched some Endries film. He might be moving into my top 10, but besides that, like I said, just Max Clare, he's the best kept secret of all this because
and anything
he wasn't
under
used.
a 4 is a 3rd string tight end according to this.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Josh Cuevas, John Michael Gillenborg, Marlon Klein, Nate Brockacher, Texas A&M are all third-string tight ends, according to this guy. He has Tanner Kozoil in the bottom 7 for tight ends. I don't agree with him on that. He has Royer ahead of Kozoil by a point. He has 4.41 as the projected point total for Kozoil.
Ain't no way, man.
For Royer. I like Royer. I don't like Royer more than Kozoil.
Kozoil is the most productive tight end in this draft. It's just
why is he in your bottom 7? Like
that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
You know, I've got him switching back and forth with Stowers because, you know, like I said about Stowers, he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body.
Yeah.
You know, but I've got them right there, you know, tight end 3, tight end 4. That's absolute. And I've seen Kozoil all over the board.
Marvin came up with comps for the tight ends. Kenyon Sadiq, his comps are Noah Fant and OJ Howard. Neither got a second contract with the team that drafted them. Eli Stowers, they didn't have a comp for him, but he says one of the most productive tight ends.
Well,
Max Clare, tight end 3, tight end 2 in this class in reception yards. He projects his tight end 3 with upside to improve after his pro day. And outside of the 70 percentile, hit rates drop significantly outside of those 3 tight ends. Despite that, tight ends who stand out and could be late-round dynasty targets based on their production athletic scores: Justin Jolly, Tanner Kozoil, Eli Reardon, Sam Roush. Finally, how does this class compare to recent drafts?
Reardon just looked
Marvin.
like
Marvin has Kenyon Sadiq as tight end 4 in the last 3 drafts behind Warren, Loveland, and Bowers. He has him ahead of Harold Fannin. I don't agree with that, by the way.
Not at all, man.
I would put Fannin ahead of Sadiq, by the way.
Yeah. Like I said, man, Sadiq, anybody who praises his so-called vertical ability over his blocking, they're lying, dude. They're sitting there looking at what's on paper. They're not looking at what's on film, dude. I mean,
yeah, and I would put Clare ahead of Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson, and Ben Sano.
Yeah.
He has Clare behind all 3 of those guys for his top 10 tight ends in the last 3 drafts. So for me,
I had
for me, Sadiq would be tight end 5, Stowers would be tight end 6, and then I think you could argue. I would probably put Jolly at 7. I would put Jolly at 7, Kozoil at 8, and Clare at 9. But it's like, you know, it's interesting, though. The model projects fantasy points, and I haven't found blocking metric. So blocking metrics are not taken into account. This just projects how players are going to do in fantasy leagues.
Well, that's one thing, too, about this draft is that there are so many of these tight ends coming in here that don't have much to do with blocking. These are a bunch of guys trying to get that flex slot role, you know, and there's a bunch of them, and they're 6'3", you know, 6'4". This is a small tight end class. And I mean, but there is a bunch of them coming in that don't know very much about blocking. You know, they just want to split wide and catch passes and don't do any of the dirty work. Well, that's usually not how it works when it comes to tight ends, you know. And so yeah, when it comes to something on fantasy points, you know, but also, I mean, is there anything on his system there that says how quickly a player, you know, can develop or step in as a tight end? It's one of the toughest positions on the field. You know, they have to do everything a left tackle does and everything a wide receiver does, and get paid half as much. You know, just like Greg Olson says. You know, but I don't know, man. That whatever that guy's got going it looks like a pretty flawed model.
Yep.
He's looking at a lot of paper stuff, and that's what a lot of this fantasy football stuff is people looking at what is on paper, and that's it. They're not watching film. And I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, Justin Rowie and Ritzy from the Dallas Stars. He was pointing his stick at Connor McDavid after getting into a fight with him in Dallas's 7-2 win over Edmonton. Okay, yeah, let's get back to the group mock, though. Gabe Jacas went to the Texans at 59. Brad Noble takes him as a third edge rusher to replace Derek Barnett, but he played outside linebacker at Illinois. Marcus Beer went KC Conception as a DJ Moore replacement. He will play slot receiver. Burden and O'Dunes will play on the outside. Conception will move to the slot. The Rams get Malik Muhammad as their nickel corner to pair with Justin Watson and Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie. The Broncos take Jake Golday. I've got a fourth on Golday, but the Broncos pick him as a replacement to Dre Greenlaw, I would imagine, because he played left outside linebacker at Cincinnati. But I would imagine he's a 34 middle linebacker in Denver's defense, William. And with Greenlaw gone, I would imagine Golday's being drafted as Greenlaw's replacement. I can't really think of any other way to spin this because I think Golday's a better fit for a 43 defense like your Niners. But if the Broncos are picking him, they're probably picking him as Greenlaw's replacement, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
Because it's basically Golday versus Drew Sanders. That's probably what you're looking at.
Oh, that was one thing we didn't really get into earlier, talking about, the free agency thing is Niners bringing Dre Greenlaw back for a year. And, with how I see them drafting Bryce Botcher, to give him Greenlaw as a mentor for a year would be absolutely amazing, dude. I mean, whatever we're doing now, the Niners are actually making moves this year, and it's not some of these bargain basement kind of stuff, it's kind of really some common sense moves. Kyle has found out who he wants on his team, and he's finding these guys, getting them 1 year, 2 year rentals here and there, back and forth, and balancing that with the cap and doing a great job at still competing, considering what happened last year. I mean, after week one, our week one starters missed something like 60% of the season. It was absolutely crazy. And it's actually going to be really interesting, but I definitely like the Greenlaw thing coming back. And like I said, I know we've been meeting with Bryce Botcher, and it's been a couple of times, and I can see how he fits in the situation. To have these linebackers, in the nickel role and everything else, man, I really like what we've done so well or so far this year, and I think we're gonna have next season is going to be a good one. So
I agree. And then at 63, I took Tim Keenan the third. Look, Tim Keenan won some triple teams against Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Indiana made Alabama their bitch 38-3. I saw the game, but Tim Keenan won some triple teams in that game. He won some triple teams against Georgia as well. So if you put a nose tackle who won triple teams in college next to two guys on the interior like Barmore and Milton Williams who command triple teams in their own right, he's gonna wreak havoc in that unit, Yeah. So, and with Tonga gone, this pick just made too much sense. Take the third best defensive tackle in the draft. And I was looking at a bunch of other guys. I was looking at Mikhail Kamara, the Indiana edge. But my goal is to get day one starters with the first two picks. I knew Keenan wasn't going to be there at 95, so that's why I took him here. Red Murdoch of Buffalo, another guy I was looking at middle linebacker. He's still on the board. And then the Seahawks took Colton Hood, the Tennessee corner. And the first pick of round 3 is Kamari Ramsey of USC. We're still waiting on David Coating and the Titans, but Oren's looking at receiver and corner. I'm not going to reveal what player he's picking yet, but yeah. Once David Coating picks for the Titans, we will be on to this. And if he doesn't pick by 5 today, we're just going to give him Emmett Johnson, the best player on the board. And we're going to give Oren the player he wants and just move this thing along. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll quickly pull up some bracketology stuff for March Madness on my phone. Because I know I know the tournament, the brackets are going to come out tomorrow, but I'm just going to look at what CBS has. CBS has Duke, Long Island, Utah, St. Louis, St. John's, Akron in the 5-12 game, Kansas and High Point. I think I might take High Point over Kansas. That's a tough one. I mean, if Kansas plays Darren Peterson, I might pick them, but it's like Peterson's been in and out of the lineup. Kansas is not good this year compared to previous years. Wisconsin's in the 6v11 game right now. Siena, Vanderbilt would play Wright State. Nova would play NC State. Purdue would play Siena. Florida would be the 1 seeds. Ohio State would play St. Mary's in the South. Arkansas would play McNeese State. Nebraska would play UC Irvine. North Carolina would play South Florida. Illinois would play Troy as a 3 seed. Miami, Florida would play Texas, and Houston would play Furman. Outside of maybe High Point over Kansas, I don't see a trendy upset. Or Utah or St. Louis over Utah State. I don't see a trendy upset that I love in terms of college basketball. Michigan, Northern Iowa did win their conference Texas Tech's probably the best 5 seed in the tournament, though. That's a really tough game to pick, in my opinion. I would probably take Texas Tech, but Northern Iowa, I could see them winning as a 12 seed, but I'm not bold enough to pick them to upset Texas Tech. Bama, Hofstra, these are not the official games. They're just projected matchups. Louisville versus an 11 seed in the play-in game. Iowa State, North Dakota State, UConn. I think UConn or Iowa State makes it out of the Michigan bracket. I don't know. I think Arizona and Duke are going to be the 2 teams that end up in the title game. I like Miami, Ohio versus BYU. That's a tough 6-11 game because BYU's got A.J. Dybantsa, number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Yale over Tennessee. I think I might pick Yale over Tennessee. If that's the 12-5 matchup in the tournament for March Madness, I might take Yale as a 12 seed. That might be a team that pulls off an upset here in the bracket. But outside of High Point over Kansas and Yale over Tennessee, I don't really like a lot of underdogs this year. And I think we're probably going to see all number 1 seeds in the Final Four more than likely. It just depends on how the brackets are. But the Bracketology show with Emmanuel Watson and myself will be tomorrow at 6 p.m. That is going to do it for this edition of Draft Utopia. We got through everything in 2.5 hours. Wait, Joey's back. So we will let Joey get his closing thoughts here before we sign off. Or is that from a while ago? I don't know if that's recent or if that's from a while ago. That may be from a while ago.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, I will give – William and I are about to sign off. I'll text Joey. I'll call Joey and see what he wants to say briefly. Yeah, because Joey wants to say something briefly before we sign off. I'll give him the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we are going to sign off because I'm at the point where I want to sign off. Hey, Joey, I heard you try to get back on Restream. We are about to sign off, but if you want to say something before we sign off about whatever, rant about whatever, go ahead.
Address the round second round pick for Titus and Vanderbilt. I was going to say that was a pure value pick. That was all it was. And the Iowa Caucus,
Texans, Brad Noble and the Texans took him.
He's just played number 10.
And they got Braden Smith in free agency too, by the way, Joey. So if the Texans, I don't think Brad's going to take Dunker in the 7-round mock because the Texans just added Braden Smith on a 2-year deal to replace Titus Howard.
Yeah, anybody watching Dunker, this dude is smaller than you would think, muscular, compact, and yeah, he's got some holes in his pass blocking. But he's going to punch you in the mouth.
I like Tiernan more than Dunker, but I have the same potential grade, 93 out of 99 of both players. And Dunker has the hair. He has the attitude. He has the flair. He has the mean streak.
Dunker's hair, I really think Dunker's hair gives him a little bit of an advantage. Just because I'm a hair guy, he has some really nice hair. So that gives him an extra bonus point.
Like, if you want pass blocking, you want fundamentals, take Tiernan. But if you want the attitude, the mean streak, the hair, take Dunker. It's that simple, Joey.
You know, anybody who's looking to put a fear of God into their opponent on the line, you take Dunker.
Yeah.
Dunker's a one tank that's going to load on you, and he's just going to take you up to do this. And that's just the way she goes. And nobody's going to be upset about that.
Yeah.
Now, the thing I heard over the that's pretty much all I wanted to say, is that those two prospects were, I think most guys are first-round prospects. They both fell in the second round, so anybody who gets them is going to be lucky to get them.
Actually, Dunker went to the Texans at 28, and Caleb Tiernan went to the Cardinals at 34.
I almost took him at 27 if Hano would have been there.
Okay, so, yeah, so three guys, all first-round picks. They're winning the second round.
Yeah, Maui Goa was 9th on the simulator. Fano was 24th. We had Brian Parker at 18. He did fall to the second round where the Bengals took him, but the Bengals could play him at center right away, potentially. And then you look at some of the other guys that fell. We have Dunker at 32 on the simulator. We have Caleb Tiernan at 27. So there's some guys that fell. It's going to be interesting, though.
And a lot of these guys, remember, a lot of this draft is incredibly deep at right tackle and people who can play guard. Left tackle, like a lot of the reason I took Quinlan at 24 was because when it comes to left tackle, he may be the only pure left tackle. And that's something right now with the move that the Browns made. The Browns need.
Yeah, if you want a pure left tackle, you can take either Freeling, because a lot of the guys in this draft are guys who have experience at both tackle roles. So if you're looking for versatility, take Fano, Caleb Tiernan. Those guys have versatility. If you're looking for a guy who's purely a one-position plug-and-play guy, you're going to have limited options. Yeah.
So if you're just looking for a left tackle because everything else is filled, you're going to have to take money or else you ain't going to be able to take it.
Yeah, because there's guys who can play multiple positions, but you don't necessarily know which position they're going to project better at the next level.
Like, I have no tall guy. But am I going to draft them or Freeman if I be a pure left tackle? No. Because it doesn't make sense. If I need a left tackle, a right guard, or a left guard, a right tackle, you know, if I need those positions, yeah, I am those positions.
Yep.
But we don't have that.
Yeah. Sounds like a great show. And, William, what do you think of Joey's draft? And then we'll sign off, because we do all want to sign off. It's been 2.5 hours.
Oh, like
We'll
I
have
said,
the
man,
March Madness
I really thought that the Eli Sowers pick was something. I think every team needs two tight ends, and pairing him with Bannon, and having Cedric Tillman and some of those guys that they're, it'll make life much easier on a young quarterback, no matter who it is, whether it's Shador, whether it's Gabriel, whether it's someone else, so. But no, I definitely liked his draft, dude, and it fit the Browns, really well with what they needed.
For reference, just because you brought Dylan Gabriel, it's insinuated that Dylan Gabriel has no future with the Browns. Now, it's the base keeps going, he has no future with the taken care of one way or another. So just to let you know, I know I sound like a mom boss right now, but like Gabriel. No, we're not doing that. But he will be jettisoned in some way.
I think he's going to end up on the Falcons. I think the Falcons will only want to give up a 6th or 7th round pick for him. The Browns probably don't want to trade him unless they get a 4th for him because they know. But it's like now that the Falcons have Tua, they're not going to have the leverage to demand a 4th from Atlanta. So they're just going to take whatever they can get from him. Well, the problem is the Falcons traded their 5th round pick to the Eagles. The Browns traded their 5th round. The Falcons traded their round 5 pick to the Eagles. So the Falcons don't have a round 5 pick. They've got a 6th and a 7th, but they pick last or 3rd among the 8 and 9 teams in both those rounds. So it's not a great return. Well, they don't have a 5th round pick. It's either going to be a 6th or their 7th, or or it could be a 4th. Why would the Eagles trade for Dylan Gabriel? That just doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, I'm gonna do something briefly. I'm not gonna pull up the simulator on the air, but I'm gonna pull it up briefly here, and I'm gonna see who has 5th round pick. We'll get this Gabriel thing solved, and then we'll sign off. I'm not gonna screen share the simulator, but I'll pull it up briefly, and we'll decide. We'll figure out how this. We'll figure out who's got a round 5 pick because it starts at 141. 140 is the last pick in round 4. The Jets at 140. So the Texans have the first pick in round 5. Browns already have 2 5th round picks, by the way. They don't have I don't think they have a 6th or 7th. So they might take a 6th from Atlanta. Yeah. Yeah, they still have 2 more 5ths, and they have a 6th. They have a 6th from the Bears, I think, at 206. So they have 206 from the Bears, but that's the only 6th round pick the Browns have. So I honestly, they might take a 6th round pick from Atlanta. I'm looking at the data here and seeing, the Falcons have 197 in round 6, which is higher than the Browns' current 6th round pick. So they might do 197 for Dylan Gabriel. That seems like the most realistic scenario.
Dylan Gabriel, Zach Jackson said he was not an NFL quarterback. Everybody, the majority of the Browns fans like, oh, look at all Dylan Gabriel's stats. Like, he only threw like 3 balls that were 10 yards. Okay, guys, so settle down on the whole Dylan Gabriel great quarterback thing. He doesn't throw the ball very far.
If the Browns do get a 5th for Dylan Gabriel, it'll be the Panthers that get him because the Panthers have 2 5th round picks, and current backup to Bryce Young is not Andy Dalton, it's Kenny Pickett. So I don't know if Shadur's guaranteed a 3rd year unless he takes a significant step forward in year 2. I'm not ready to say he's a star yet, but I'm also not ready to give up on him and say he's a lost cause either.
And for a coach that actually believes in him, because remember, the coach recruited the coach out of high school, the coach recruited the Ravens, coach is not coaching with the Browns.
Monken recruited both. Monken got Carson Beck, but he also actively recruited Shadur Sanders.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can choose to score for 6 years, so it's interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, he tried to recruit Shadur, but he ends up with Carson Beck, Todd Monken. But yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I mean, Shadur's got everything he needs except for a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
So,
And a left tackle.
well, we're going to see what he can do with the coach he loves, the coach who loves him, the coach he got his head for, and go with that one all you want to. You know, and a revamped, improved offensive line. Because even with the 4 new offensive linemen they got, they did improvement over last year. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens
Yeah.
with that situation. But if Shadur comes out and he's not running for his life and having those throws that are big time or looking at different things in ways that he shouldn't be looking at them, hey, he should have a much better year. But should and will are 2 different things.
Yep.
So we will see.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So that's Joseph Potter, William Yanish, Chris Ransom. Next week, we'll preview the National League. We'll talk about other NFL free agency news if it happens. And one last thing before we sign off. The Ottawa Senators were awarded the 32nd pick after tampering in the Evgeny Dodonov trade with the Vegas Golden Knights. The NHL decided not to take away their first-round pick, but to move them all the way down to 32 in the draft, and they cannot trade the pick away either. Now, for NFL, if you got a team committing a scandal like this, instead of stripping them of their first-round pick, move them down to 32 and tell the team they cannot trade the pick. I think that's a more severe punishment. And or you move them down to Mr. Irrelevant and you tell them they can't trade the pick. that works too. But yeah, but that's news. So the Ottawa Senators do get their first round pick back, but they're going to be picking at 32 behind the Stanley Cup champion, whoever that ends up being. So yeah. And the Stanley Cup runner-up is going to get 30 this year because of Ottawa's scandal. So the conference runner-ups are going to get 28, 29. So that's definitely an interesting plot twist. So Ottawa's going to get 32 regardless of how the NHL playoffs play out. So
I do say that was created by the NHL. I'm not going to aim for creativity. That's an interesting one.
because the Ottawa got busted for tampering with the Dodonov, and they were going to lose either a 24, 25, or 26 first-round pick. So that was definitely a creative move, out-of-the-box move. You get 32, but you can't trade the pick away. You are stuck player with that pick. So I do think we're going to see other leagues take that approach with future draft picks in the coming years. Because I think if you're the NFL and you have another Spygate scandal, instead of stripping the team of a first-round pick, what you do is you say, we'll give you the pick, but you're moving all the way down to Mr. Relevant, and you can't trade the pick. Because I think that's a much harsher but much fairer punishment than just stripping the team of the pick entirely. And I like it. It's a good decision by the NHL. So, yeah. We talked a little bit about the bracketology. We talked about the NHL. We previewed the MLB American League, and we talked some NFL free agency. So next week, we'll preview the National League, and I will break down, and I'll reveal the 12 teams in the AL and NL that I have in my playoff pool. I revealed the 6 AL teams I have in the pool. I haven't revealed who's going to win each series. So if you want to know who's going to win in the AL playoffs as well as the NL playoffs, you're definitely going to want to tune in next week. Probably will have a thumbnail of the Dodgers. So outside of the players in the Dodgers, I can't really think of any big-time stars in the National League. But if you guys have any suggestions, you can message me on Facebook. I'm all ears. You can message me on X at DraftUtopia. And we'll have another football show for Under the Bleachers on Wednesday. We'll have the March Madness show with Emmanuel Watson tomorrow night at 6. So, yeah. Who? That's a good suggestion. Dylan Cease, I think, went to Toronto, though, in free agency. Okay. All right. Yeah, but it's like outside of the Dodgers players and Paul Skeens and Ellie De La Cruz and the guys in the Phillies, how many big-time stars are there in the National League? There's not many. There are stars, but not to the degree that you have in the AL with the variants. With the AL, you've got Aaron Judge, you've got Cal Raleigh, you've got Jose Ramirez, you've got Vlad Guerrero Jr., and you've got Skubal on the Tigers. That's it. Bobby Witt Jr. is on the Royals. He's a star as well. He was drafted 2nd overall after Adley Rutschman. He got a 10-year extension with the Royals, 11-year maybe, but he's been bigger star than Rutschman, but both have been good draft picks. Yeah, we'll think of more next time, but yeah, we'll see you guys back for that next Saturday and March Madness show at 6 Eastern on Sunday. All right, that's William Yanish, Joseph Potter, Chris Ransom. We really